Chillsville, ladies and gentlemen, and people everywhere in the world. Today, the John Petrucci Research Group brings you Mr. Maddie Schieferstein.
Yay!
Schieferstein? I pronounce it right?
Yeah, Schieferstein. You got it. You got it.
It's like we practiced it like a minute ago.
That's true.
Maddie, thank you so much for being here.
You're giving away all the secrets.
Yeah, no, man. So if you don't know how to pronounce Maddie's name, this is a good tutorial.
That's right. There's going to be a trivia. There's going to be trivia at the guitar camp next week.
Yeah, man. So are you getting, is that what you're more or less, what you were doing this week, getting ready for camp?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. Getting all of John's gear, everything that we're shipping from New York sent out to California. So we, the last two camps have been here in New York. So it's been very easy. You know, if you forget something, it's like, oh, I'll just swing over to the warehouse and get it later on today or something. But, we're going across country. So
yeah, not exactly a run to the store, huh?
Yeah. And of course, this morning I woke up and I went, oh yeah, I know exactly what I forgot now. Yep. Oh. Okay. So
no.
That's okay. Well, it'll be okay. So
yeah, I think
nothing important.
I don't think you'll run out of guitars at least.
No, surprisingly, we didn't send that many out. So
and we will have a couple of them there just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Just in case.
So guys, for those new to Maddie is part of the Dream Theater Petrucci Triforce. He is the Triforce of Power. No, Petrucci's the Triforce of Power. Mr. Jimmy T is the Triforce of Courage, and Mr. Maddie is the Triforce of Wisdom. He is the one who runs. Yeah, with Zelda reference, for all the geeks out there.
Okay.
Maddie is the working force behind everything logistics, from the guitar tech aspect to production, right, Maddie?
Yeah, my job encompasses a lot of different areas. Some are pretty clear, some are less clear, but ultimately, the show must go on. So be it a recording session or live performance or the camp or anything like that. So yeah, I've got my hands in a lot of different areas, but it's fun. I enjoy it.
You got a whole bunch of different hats.
Yeah. I should remember the old hats that had the two bills, like the Sherlock Holmes. I should have one that's just like, a big spiral of bills, multiple. Yeah. You could spin it around whichever way I need.
Man. So, okay. So Maddie, there's not a whole bunch of information about you on the internet. As far as like, you don't have a Wikipedia, there's not like a fact page about you. So without invading a lot of your privacy, because I know that this could be golden. You can be known for your job and be, because you're amazing at your job, man.
Oh, thank you.
What you do, and we really admire your work, and you as a person. You've been super cool with us always, and we admire a lot what you do. But then when you're like, oh, let's see where Maddie grew up and stuff like that, man, to not have that public on the internet is gold right now. I mean,
it's funny you mentioned that. I'm surprised of the lack of information on me. Of course, I don't go look for myself.
No, of course.
Yeah. And so I don't really know, but I bet you by the end of this, there's going to be a Wikipedia page. Somebody's going to make one, but it won't be me because I don't know how to do that anyway. So
I've never tried to do Wikipedia. And I think everybody has the power to just go on and edit. So
yeah. So remember, folks, everything that you read on Wikipedia may or may not be true.
That's why scholars do not use it as a valid source of information. It's always
that's true.
There could be a whole bunch of accurate information. All of a sudden, Maddie wrestled a bear back in 1998.
Well, that is true, but
what that bear didn't know is that if he had won, he had claim on all Maddie's equipment.
Yeah.
So
that's funny. So about me, well, let's see. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, and around a suburb of Cleveland, and had a nice upbringing there. Went to school. Kind of knew early on that I wanted to be Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
And I had two things going against me with that is I couldn't play like him and I didn't look like him. So that was a bit of a hard thing to wrestle with, but I finally came to terms with it and realized that I was, my father was a mechanical guy, and his father, my grandfather, was a mechanical guy. So you could put them down with a pile of parts and they'd build you something, or make something out of wood or whatever it was. And so I kind of came up in that, and I would watch them, and my dad had his own company at a shop with mechanics. They worked on like semi trucks and buses and things like that. So there was always, a welder around, or a cutting torch, or a saw, or socket wrenches and screwdrivers, whatever it was. I used to take headlights and hook them up to 12-volt car batteries to get them to come on and off, and like I'd hook up the old, I don't even know if they still use these things now, but it was like a plug-in module for the flasher for the turn signal.
Yeah.
And I would hot wire that into the circuit to make the light blink on and off by itself. And, so that's what I did after school. We went out to the shop, and then I would sweep the floors. That was my gig. I would sweep the floors. And, I was always interested in music, but it didn't really click with the guitar stuff until I saw the Scorpions, actually. I think it was Worldwide Live had just come out, and Matthias had this Explorer, right? This white Explorer with the black stripes.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that is amazing. I gotta have one of those. And this kid that worked for my dad, he was older than I was, but he was still a young guy in school. And he just happened to have an Explorer, and he says, listen, I'll sell it to you for $250 because I want to go buy an Ovation acoustic guitar. So I worked all summer sweeping floors for my dad, saved up $250, and I bought this guy's Explorer. It was black and with a white pick guard, gold hardware, and somebody had put a DiMarzio super distortion pickup in the bridge, right? And and by that time I had discovered Van Halen, right? Okay. So I was starting to kind of understand the tinkering with guitars, because I would start reading articles in guitar magazines about, I built my own guitar because I couldn't find one that did what I wanted it to do. And so that kind of inspired me to, of course, tinker with my own guitar. So I removed all the electronics one day and put them back in. Nice. I would take it apart, and I would take electrical tape, cover the pick guard, and then take an X-Acto knife and cut out shapes, and just do random silly stuff like that. And eventually I decided I need a tremolo bar on this Explorer. So I went down to the local music store, and they sold me this knockoff Kahler tremolo. And they said, well, we can put it in for you. And I said, okay, great. I don't know how to do that.
Okay.
And they didn't do a very good job of it.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. But I had a tremolo bar. So now I'm doing dive bombs, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. Right. And, I had that guitar for a while. And the only thing I didn't know about were strap locks.
Okay.
So I'm in my bedroom one day, and I'm rocking out with this little Gorilla amplifier that I had. Me and my buddies. That's what they sold at the local music store. Yeah. So that was our first amps, right? And I'm jamming out in my room. I'm trying to play a Van Halen tune or something, and I prop the guitar up on my knee, and I put my leg down, and I didn't realize the strap had come off, and I let the guitar go, and it nosedived and snapped the headstock. Right. Multiple breaks.
Whoa.
And I was devastated. And in that devastation, I took it to the local music store, and they said, we can't fix that. You got to buy a new guitar. And I was like, oh, so I parted the guitar out. Right. And ended up buying a Kramer because I'm like, all right, well, now I'm going to be Eddie Van Halen, right? So now I got a Kramer and a Floyd Rose and one pickup, and yes, this is great. And come to find out years later, when I started getting into more of the technical side of guitar stuff, there was this luthier in Cleveland. His name was Kenny, and he worked at another local music store, and he had a shop in the store, and it was all glass around him, so you could watch him work, right, if you were in the store shopping. So I used to sneak into his little shop and just sit there and watch him work for a while. And one day I was telling him about this Explorer, and he goes, "Oh, you should have just brought it here. I fix those all the time. Look, here's one right now." And he had a Les Paul that had a snapped headstock, and he showed me how it was glued back together. And I was like, man, what an idiot I am. But you move on. And, I had a Kramer at that point, a Floyd Rose, and that's really all I needed.
You were loaded, man. Yeah, you were fully loaded.
Yeah. I'd work my ass off sweeping floors for my dad, or whatever other odd jobs I could find as a kid. And that's, but back then too, guitars in today's dollars, they weren't expensive.
No,
$200-300, and you had a pretty good guitar, right?
You could go into like practically anywhere and get a guitar. I mean, not only music stores, you could go to like furniture stores, for example, in Puerto Rico, carried like George Lynch style guitars. And
it's excellent.
There was this place, ¿verdad, Elise? Mueblería Minguela.
Minguela. Yes.
In Mayagüez, where we're from, there was this furniture store, and you would go in there and you had the furniture with the plastic on, of course, like grandma's house.
Yes.
And in the corner, they had like a whole bunch of guitar strings and a guitar with like snakeskin finish and stuff. And you're like, wow. And you'd ask, like, where can I get a guitar? It's like, have you been to the furniture store? And I'm like, what?
Exactly.
Yeah, they have a corner that they have like shred guitars and stuff. You're like, really? Of course, my mom wouldn't buy me one of those. I had to.
Right.
I got a classical that was my dad's that he never really used, and I had to later on in life figure out the trims and stuff. But that's pretty much, you can get it for like $200-300, and you had like a pretty amazing working guitar with a tremolo and hot pickups and everything.
Yeah, and back in the 80s, all the quote unquote super strats, your Charvels and Jacksons, they were all basically just a Fender Strat that you'd throw a humbucker in, or you'd put a Floyd Rose in, or and me and my buddies, my buddies and I, when we were kids, we were all guitar players, and we would swap pickups around to each other, and just like, oh yeah, man, check out these new tuners I got. Oh, really? Well, oh, those feel really good. Or, just silly stuff. It wasn't a big deal. Like it kind of seems to have gotten now, I think. But I think people are a lot less easy about changing out parts on their guitars, or well, of course, except for you, Ellis, with what you've just done. But that's like going to Mars or something like that,
Literally.
But I mean, when I was a kid, it was nothing for me to like that. Like when I parted out that Explorer, I took the Super Distortion pickup, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, there's two coils and they're hooked together through these wires.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to put a pickup in my acoustic guitar, but the humbucker's too big. So let me just take one of these coils off. So I took it apart, removed one of the coils, jammed the pickup up against the neck so that the base plate of the pickup was under the tongue of the neck. So I had a single coil pickup.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I punched a hole in the side of the acoustic, and I had the jack plate with the jack from the Explorer, and I soldered the pickup to it. No volume control. Boom. There you go.
I was not that courageous. I was not that courageous when I was a kid with my guitars.
No, man. Me either.
It was, I think that, that comes from the Eddie Van Halen influence, the way it read to me in those articles. there was no fear, you know, it was just like, I will stop at nothing until I get what I'm after.
Nice.
And so if that means I have to take a pickup apart, or if I have to, you know, whatever it is, you just do it. Right. And if it doesn't work, well, okay, it doesn't work. You learn. So fortunately for me, I don't think I've ruined much stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had a few missteps here and there, but you know.
So when was the moment that you like decided that this is what I want to do, and how did you? But basically, the question is, how did you get into the gig of being, you know, a tech?
So that happened many years later, and I knew I wanted to be in music, and I wanted to work in a recording studio.
Okay.
So my mom worked with a lady who knew a guy who was a recording engineer at a studio in Cleveland. And they did predominantly like they were like a multimedia studio. So they did TV, video production, you know, recording, all that stuff. And she got me the phone number for the guy. And I think I was probably 15 at the time, maybe. And just in high school. And I summoned up the courage to call him. And I get him on the phone. He was very kind to me. His name was Joel. And he said, listen, why don't you come down to the studio tomorrow morning? I'm going to be working on a session overnight, but I'll be done around 7 a.m. or something like that. Why don't you, if you can get down here, I'll show you around the place. We can talk for a little bit. I said, okay. Wow. So my dad drove me in there, dropped me off, waited in the parking lot. I went in. They brought me into the lounge of the studio, and I'm sitting there, and there's all the gold and platinum records and all the, you know, it's like, wow, this is the real thing. Door comes open, and they show me into the control room, and he's in on the phone, and he's sitting at the console, and he was still doing something, but I was in awe of the whole thing. And anyway, he gives me a tour of the place, and we're talking for a while, and he goes, listen, you seem like you really want to do this. There's this school down in Orlando, Florida called Full Sail. And if you really want to get into this line of work, that's probably a good place for you to check out. And lo and behold, Full Sail was doing one of their kind of recruitment tours. You know, they would go out and do these live shows. Michelangelo Badio was there. He playing his, you know, double and triple neck guitar, whatever it was. And I went down there with a buddy of mine, and got really excited and really hyped in. Ended up going down to Orlando to check out the campus. And I told my parents, I said, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is, if anything, this will get my foot in the door somewhere. And sure enough, I went down there, went to school. It was a year-long course at the time. And for whatever reason, my class, they put us in, after the week of introduction, they put us into the live show production course first. Usually you go into like recording 101 first, right? For some reason, we ended up in the live course. And I just went, well, this is it. This is what I want to do. And, you know, so I thought, I'm going to be an audio guy or a lighting guy or something like that. You know, it seemed pretty cut and dry to me. One of the lab instructors that I had in the live course worked at a local audio company. And he said, why don't you come down on the weekend and help me out? You know, you can help me out around the shop. Okay. So again, opportunity to go check something out. I go down there. I wouldn't call it interning, but I would call it, I ended up being the shop guy down there while I was going to school, you know? So I would go in on the weekend. I would be the guy peeling the duct tape off of microphone cables. And I had a little bench in the back corner, and I would sit there and fix stuff. And, you know, and eventually the guys in the shop were like, well, let's take them out on a gig, you know? And they had there was a roller derby gig or something one night in Daytona Beach. So they took me out on that, you know? So now I'm doing my first gig. Cool. And still wasn't getting paid for any of it, but it was a learning experience. And what happened was when I got out of school, I then went to work as a paid employee at that company. And I started freelancing around town, doing other gigs and getting in with other companies. And while all that was going on, my best friend, who's a bass player, got a gig playing bass for Pat Travers, and calls me up one day and says, "Hey, have you ever thought about being a guitar tech?" And I'm like, "No, not really sure what that is, but sounds fun." And he goes, "Well, Pat just fired his guitar tech and he's looking for somebody. So I'll put your name in." And I said, "Okay." I said, to me, it was like, this is, if I get this job, I'm going to hang out with my best friend all day. It's awesome. Well, I end up getting the gig, and I had a like a tryout. So Pat was doing a one-off show at a club down in South Florida somewhere. So we go over to Pat's house, we load up the gear in the back of this little U-Haul truck, go down to this club. And basically this is my audition, right, to be his guitar tech. And this was probably in 93, maybe somewhere around there. And he had another guitar player playing with him, a guy called Eric Cartwright. And Eric was, when Foghat kind of split up and there were the two Foghats years ago, Eric was one of the guitar players in one of the Foghats. Okay. Among other things. But Eric was a serious amp tech and electronics guy. Like, he built his own pedal boards, he tweaked his own amps, serious cat with that stuff. He's since passed away several years ago, but he was a nice guy. And I remember him coming up to me and he looks me right in the eye and he goes, "So how do you stretch out the strings?" And I'm like, now, mind you, this is the only experience I've had working on guitars on my own at this point, right? I've never done this for anybody else. And I'm like, well, why don't you show me how you want it done? And that's how I'll do it. Boom. How I ever conjured that up to say that out loud, I have no idea, but he showed me, and it's pretty much still the same way I stretch strings now. Nice. All these years later, right? Almost 30 years later. And after the gig, we were driving home, and my buddy and I are driving, my friend and I are driving the U-Haul back. And he goes, "So what'd you think?" And I go, "Man, I wasn't sure I was going to make it, because I've never stretched strings before. I used to just put them on and play and keep tuning until I didn't have to tune anymore. I didn't know you had to do that." So, it's all of these kind of happenstance things. But that kind of cemented my foot in the tech side of things. And because of Pat, because it was a club tour, and I came up hard, I driving a truck all night, eating bad food, chain smoking cigarettes, drinking like a fish, doing all these shitty club gigs, but because of that, we ended up doing a festival, and I met this guy who was working for one of the versions of Black Sabbath at the time, who also worked for Deep Purple. And because he watched me work and saw my work ethic, he ended up hiring me to go to work for Deep Purple. So, it was just kind of a snowball effect. And then my affiliation with Dream Theater came from working with Deep Purple. Yeah. Right. When they toured with us back in the late 90s.
That's pretty much all I found on the internet. That's like between the other, well, there's a couple of dozen really cool interviews that you have done, but basically that's what's covered is I took apart guitars as my beginning, and then I was working for Deep Purple. So all this stuff fills in so many gaps.
Oh, good. Yeah,
this is cool. It's super cool.
It's fun to kind of reminisce about it, because I tend to forget some of it. But it was the Deep Purple experience was, again, another, like, I will be forever grateful to Pat for the experience that I gained working for him. And he was so cool to allow me to experiment, you know, to hone my craft, so to speak. And it wasn't just Pat either. It was, there's a guitar shop down in Orlando called the Guitar Factory.
Okay.
And it's these two guys, Bill and Doug, and they've worked together forever. You know, they started the company together. They build their own guitars, but it's, you know, they also do a lot of repair work. And I remember Pat's manager taking me down there to their shop one day and introducing me. And Pat's manager said, listen, if you want to get good at this stuff, these are the guys you need to hang around. So I would go down there and I would just sit, and Bill and I would talk for hours about stuff, because Bill was, you know, he was a luthier. He did repairs at a bench. He didn't know about the touring stuff. Right. So I would share those stories, and then he would share guitar stuff with me. And I would watch Doug work on guitars. You know, Doug was mainly the guy who built the guitars.
Okay.
So he was in the wood shop out back, cutting out bodies and necks and sanding. And, you know, he goes, the thing about building a guitar, it's a lot of sanding and more sanding and more sanding and more sanding. But, you know, those were the guys who, they said, you know, if you're really serious about this, you need to get a serious tuner. And they set me up with my first Peterson strobe tuner, you know, the old manual one where you had to turn the knob to select the note and all that stuff. And so those three people were very influential in my guitar teching career. And then Deep Purple was equally influential in how to tour, because we went everywhere. Any corner of the planet that you could do a show at, we did it.
Wow.
You know, 6 weeks in Russia alone.
Wow.
Yeah, that was nuts. That was crazy.
Wow.
But you know, the one thing I gleaned from that experience is people are people, you know, they're just, everybody's a human being.
Yeah.
You know, so and everybody, you know, most everybody loves music. So
yeah,
it's a common thread. But you know, the Dream Theater tie-in there was Deep Purple were taking a break. Purple's management had started working with Dream Theater, and Dream Theater was going out on the Scenes from a Memory tour back in 2000, and they needed some crew guys. So management said, hey, we'll send some of the Deep Purple guys out with you. And I was one of those guys.
Is that where you work with Jordan, right?
Yeah, Jordan and John Mayung. So I took care of both of those guys.
Man.
Yeah, that was back in the day.
Yeah, I remember. And, I remember that coming out, man, and we just waiting for it.
Yep. Yeah, that was a fun tour. That was a big learning experience too, you know, for that type of record, you know, for the concept record, and just how well it was received was amazing.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, I mean, man, speaking of Scenes from a Memory, that's the, you know, the tie-in to the last tour with Distance Over Time. That was, I was lucky enough to go twice.
Yeah.
It's just something, man, Ellis, but now, whenever, you know, DT starts touring again, we got to go to a show together, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you know, the way things are going, I hope that things keep improving.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
maybe we'll have a DT show to go to. So Maddie, yeah, that's basically where we got right now. That's basically where the internet starts telling your story. And because when even when we go to like podcast and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, Maddie took apart guitars as a kid, and all of a sudden he's working for Deep Purple. It's like, there's this kid who takes apart his guitars perfectly. Let's get him, you know.
Yeah.
And then boom. You know. So we have been following your career very, very closely. I mean, Ellis is much more adept at, you know, taking apart guitars and everything. He's taught me everything I know about setups, about my own guitars. He knows more about my own guitars than I do.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Ellis is like from the John Petrucci research group. He is our Maddie.
Okay. Excellent.
So
you see,
excellent.
Yeah, and he is our Maddie. We like, Ellis, does this work? Like when I had to like change a bridge, I wouldn't have done it. I'm not that courageous. I mean, especially on a Majesty. I don't. I look at the Majesty. I'm like, that's glass, man. I mean, I don't want to touch it that way because I might ruin it. And then it's like, no, dude, do this and this and this and this. You'll be fine. Now, before you do this, grab it here. You put this towel under. Then you get, and everything was so smooth. I was like, holy crap! But yeah, everything works as long as I follow those details. So we've go into, like we've said before here with the John Petrucci Research Group, we like to dig into the why of things and how of things.
Sure. Because
small details matter. When, you know, we always get the big picture, and you and NJP always give us like nuggets of knowledge. And even being at the John Petrucci Guitar Universe was like eye-opening in many things that we've heard about, but actually got to see in detail over the days, you know, because it's 4 days of, you know, being exposed to how you do the whole thing.
So much information for a week. So much more information.
We're still dissecting every single day, and I took video of almost everything. And every time we go back to like a piece of something, I was like, okay, why does this happen? And one of those things it has to do with what you work with, you know, the little drawers with the stump boxes and everything. So we're gonna go into details with this stuff that you might have mentioned before.
All right.
But some people like take it like, okay, so when you take something on faith, you're like, oh, okay, so that works. So yeah, we take it on faith, but we want dogma, man. We want to go like deeper into this and like, okay, this cable is here. I know this works. I want to know why. So
me too, sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Man. And right
sometimes
now,
you just turn everything on and it works. You're like, yes,
yes. One more day, let's go. So the first thing that I wrote down, and then we talked about, Ellis and I, is, you know, you work with such a big rig and everything is so specific. What is your biggest challenge with traveling with all this stuff?
Maintenance.
Okay.
Maintenance. You know, you know, it's like with anything, like with driving a car, or, you know, you have to check the air in the tires, you have to check the oil, or take it somewhere at least for somebody to do that for you. And that's what it is with the gear. You know, it has to work every day, right? And it's getting bounced down the road in a truck, or it's being put in an airplane, or it's being put in a container and on a boat for 2 weeks crossing the North Atlantic Ocean, or wherever it's going, right? And so the biggest thing is maintenance, keeping things clean, you know, regularly checking all of the connectors, right? All the 1/4-inch connectors. Because sometimes, like, I'll open up the pedalboard drawer and one of the little metals, you know, sleeves on a connector is unscrewed itself, and it's there, you know, it's on the wire, but you got to make sure that all that stuff's together. And that's really the biggest thing, you know, and trying to anticipate, like, if something starts to make a little bit of noise in the afternoon at sound check, you're like, I need to really check that out, because if it's making noise now, it could go catastrophic later. And sometimes it's nothing, and sometimes it's something, you know. And so that's the biggest challenge, is just keeping up on all of that stuff, you know. And it's multifaceted too. It's not only the rack with the amps and the effects and the and then you have the pedal board, is there a switch loose on the pedal board? So you got to take the pedal board apart and tighten everything up. And well, now you've got it open, so you might as well clean it all, right, on the inside. So, is the volume pedal acting funny? Because, stuff does wear out after a while. And then you have all the guitars, right? Yeah. So I think on the last tour, I had 16 guitars out by the end of it, and it's the way we do guitars is there's 2 per tuning, right? So standard tuning 6 has 2 guitars, 7 string 2 guitars, C standard 2 guitars, D standard 2 guitars, E flat 2 guitars, baritone 2 guitars. And then we get into other, like, well, hey, we just got this new guitar, so let's use that for something. And, wow. There's we're doing a DVD shoot, and, Music Man just sent us the new colors that'll be out by the time the DVD comes out. So we need to incorporate those somehow. So, you start in the acoustic guitars and, so it's kind of, it sounds and can be overwhelming at times, but like what I do for the guitars anyways, they're in rotation, right? So like, for example, C standard, they did 2 songs in that tuning on the last tour. So that guitar gets used twice out of a 3-hour show. So do I need to change strings on it every day?
No.
Can it go every other show? Yeah. D standard was 1 song. So does that need to be changed every day? No. So I would put them in rotation. So I was only maybe changing 5 or 6 sets of guitar strings a day.
Pretty much the one that does like the one that played scenes the most.
Yeah, and that was 2 guitars. So he had 2 standard guitars, and he wanted to switch between them. So like the beginning of scenes was it was the blue one. What do they call that?
The kinetic blue.
Kinetic blue. Yeah. It was the kinetic blue, and then after Dance of Eternity, which was a 7-string song, and Home, which was a drop D, we would switch to the I think at the time it was the Tiger Eye, and then we got the Nebula right towards the end, because those songs in the latter part of the set lent themselves to like the Tiger Eye or Nebula sound, the mahogany full maple top and all that stuff. So
maintenance. We well, of course we can't compare the rigs that we have. Well, at least I can't compare the rig that I have here in my studio home, but
looks like Ellis has got pretty much the thing there, right?
Oh yeah, he has the boogie and mine. You can't see it, but it's right to my right. We have our JP2Cs always like right next to us when we're either zooming or whatever. We're just always tweaking, and we'll take like a screenshot from JP's Instagram and go directly to it. We're like, okay, what moved here? Every single time it's like, okay, and why? Like, yeah. And we talked to Jimmy T about this last time. He's like, sometimes I'm setting up and he's there changing, and I'm like, okay, I got to compensate so Jordan won't tell me he has too much guitar or stuff like that. So the constant tinkering has us constantly tinkering. So
and I think a lot of that is just because it's always a quest to see if you can make it better. But eventually what happens is there's a sweet spot for every setting on the JP2C. So everything just kind of always falls back to that area. But, a lot of times live too, it's sort of room dependent, like sometimes a room is just boomy and it's like, it just sounds, the bottom end sounds clogged up, so you start adjusting, but then that kind of spirals into, well, let me see what else I can do, because that sounds pretty good right now. Let me see if I can make it better, and sometimes you make it better, sometimes you don't. So
super sensitive too. I mean, you touch
super sensitive,
super duper sensitive. I mean, Ellis and I might have like what it seems to be the same setup, and it'll sound slightly different. Like, Ellis, you're getting so much more scooping in your mids than I am. What am I doing different?
So, a lot of that, it just has to do with the tolerances of the parts.
Yeah.
Right. And I've talked to the guys at Boogie about this, and they spec a very strict tolerance for all the pots and the faders and all that stuff for the graphics. But there's still a variance, you know, whether it's 1% or 5% or, you know, whatever it is. So even with John's rig with 2 amps running, even if the trebles are set exactly the same, or the presence or whatever, there's still slight differences.
Yeah.
So it's inherent in each amp, you know, that you have to, the point of it, this is listen, don't just look, listen to it, you know, use your ears. And does it sound good? Is it too harsh? Then back the presence down a little bit, or whatever is causing the harshness, you know. And that's again multifaceted with an amplifier too. So, you know, all those EQ controls work together within themselves, you know. And I never really understood it until I started working for John and really delved into when he went back to the Mark series amps, because the Road Kings didn't have a graphic EQ.
No.
Mm-hmm.
How much the graphic plays into the tone of the Mesa Boogie Mark amps, you know, because they're part of the power section. So, you know, you just goof around with them, you know. I tried to tell a buddy of mine who had just bought a Mesa amp. I think he bought I can't remember what he bought, but I said, sit in front of it for an hour and just turn every knob up and down while you're going chunk, 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 and see and hear what every knob does, and then start trying to dial in a tone.
Yeah.
So,
but we're spoiled now, man. We have 2 graphic EQs, 3 channels.
Yeah.
I mean, every time we look at an amp now, it's like, what are we missing? It's like, it's like, what are we missing? If it's missing something, we don't want it. We've been looking into, Ellis has been looking into like a Mark 525 and stuff like that, because they're powerful, man. I mean, remember, but let me cut off a segue here, because I want Ellis to bring in a question for you. And before we dive further into the boogies, I know he has a question about setups with the guitars before we stray away from that, but let me make a note here. All right.
Okay.
So Ellis, you want to talk to Maddie about the...
Yeah, Maddie, when you are touring, I have this always I think about this. I know that sometimes guitars require a little tweak here and there in the setting, but when you are touring, when is that time when John's guitar require like a whole setup all over again?
Very rare. Very rare. Usually at the start of a tour, when we're doing rehearsals and we're picking out the guitars that he's going to take on the road, I'll go through all of them, do a string change, check the setup. And as he's rehearsing and playing, he'll go, this one feels a little stiff, or, you know, I don't know, the action might be a little high. Let's adjust the neck and let's see if that takes care of it. So, you know, if it's a truss rod adjustment and that doesn't take care of the problem, then I'll have to take it back to the bench and go, all right, what's happening here? You know, is the bridge level? Did something get out of whack? You know, but it's generally whenever a new guitar comes in from the factory, you know, I'll go over it. The factory setup is pretty much John's setup. So I'll just go over it and tweak it a little bit if needed, but it just depends on how it feels, you know, and each guitar is going to feel a little different. But once we're out there touring, probably the biggest adjustment I do every day is truss rod.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We've
and
heard
that's
that
just,
before
you know,
from you. Like, don't be afraid of the truss rod.
Yeah. And it's,
remember that.
It's a great, you know, the necks on these guitars are a little thinner than most, right? It's not a big thick baseball bat that's not going to move. They tend to move a little bit, especially with weather.
Yeah.
So if you go from cold to hot, or you're doing an outdoor gig and it's raining, you know, humidity, all of that stuff will affect the guitar in some shape or form, right? And we had one years ago. I was set up on the floor, and the stage was like 6 feet high, so it was really high up in the air, and the temperature difference between the floor and the stage level was about 3.5 degrees, and that made a huge difference in the guitar tuning. And so from that point on, I was like, I got to set up on, even if it's in the back corner of the stage, I have to be on the same level now, because that's too much of a temperature swing. The guitar goes out of tune. I hand it to him and the guitar's out of tune.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What the hell? So yeah, essentially the main adjustment I do every day is a truss rod adjustment. And, you know, I try and make it so when I hand him a guitar in the middle of a show, he just has to go play. You know, if he comes over, if he looks at me like something's wrong, or if he comes over at the next guitar change and goes, the action was really high on that guitar, I didn't do my job very well. You know, so the goal is for him to not look at me and not say anything.
Okay. Just grab a guitar, you know, go play. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all just minute degrees of change, you know. And sometimes it has to do with, you know, we're doing our 4th show in a row, you know, and maybe he's just feeling it a little bit, you know, his fingers are a little, you know, just a little more sensitive, or, you know, it's colder on stage, or it's hotter on stage, or it's, you know, whatever it is. So, you know, I just have to be hyper focused on those adjustments.
Cool.
So,
cool, man. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is there like a secret that's also an Ellis question. He was talking to me about how do you get the majesties to all kind of behave the same? Like, I mean, apart from setup, you know, there's slight differences. We were talking earlier before we started the actual interview, we were talking about the difference between like the BFRs and the normal majesties. Maybe some are like a little bit heavier or a little bit chunkier. Does that really make a big difference? And how do you get that, you know, that way space just to narrow down?
Well, so you kind of, the way I approach something like that is like a good example. On the last tour, we had 2 main guitars. We had the Kinetic Blue, which is basswood. So that has a particular tonal landscape to it. And then we had a Tiger Eye, which was, I believe is it mahogany with a full maple top. That has a different tonal landscape to it. So, you know, like the Tiger Eye would lend itself tonally to certain songs, whereas the Kinetic Blue, if it was a little bit more of an aggressive song, like it would lend itself a little bit more to that. To me, basswood guitars lend themselves a little bit more to an aggressive style, basswood and alder, in my opinion. But the mahogany maple top is a little bit more vowel like, singing like, you know,
more like round, kind of lyric-y kind of sound.
Yeah. So like a good example is he would use the Tiger Eye on The Spirit Carries On. The Spirit Carries On, because that's really just a big soaring guitar solo for the whole song, right? That guitar is perfect for that. You could do it with the Kinetic Blue with a basswood guitar. Of course, it's gonna sound great, but the Tiger Eye just lent itself a little better. So knowing what the tonal differences are in the different makes of the guitars, you know, the different wood combinations, you know, that's really what we focus on. You know, it's not like they have to weigh the same, you know, I don't put them on a scale or anything like that. You know, it's you just accept that this guitar is made out of wood that might be a little heavier, or, you know, whatever. So yeah, that's how we kind of make those determinations. It's more of this guitar is going to sound good for these songs, and this one's going to sound good for these songs.
Yeah.
So we're covered. And if I pop a string in the middle of a tune, and I have to switch to the other guitar, it's not a problem. You know, you just know that there might be a slight sonic difference, but in the grand scheme of things, it's
not a world of difference. Yeah.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
It's not like going from like a Les Paul to a Telly or a Strat.
Oh no.
You know what I mean?
No.
So,
Oh no.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, going from that meaty tiger eye sound to like a single coil sound?
No,
Yes.
no, please.
No,
It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.
Doesn't work.
Imagine overture with a sync. No. Wow. No. So Maddie, new things coming in the horizon. Majesty 8, man. Have you worked with an 8-string before, Johns?
Nope.
No, this is the first time.
No, first time.
Okay, so this is experimentation.
Oh. Yeah. Now, this is a project that's been in the works for quite a while. So I have done some research, and I've had opportunity to play other 8-string guitars just to check them out and just see what's what. So, I have a hard enough time wrapping my head around 6 strings playing, 7 strings, forget it. 8-string, it's a different animal, that's for sure. But it's not, though. You know what I mean? So from a tech side of things, for me, I just have to kind of learn the idiosyncrasies of it, when I'm changing strings and stuff like that. But it's like with an 8-string guitar, I change strings in pairs anyway. So it's like, okay, that's no big deal.
And I got 4 pairs.
Yeah. Now I got 4 pairs. Yeah. Instead of 3, or with a 7-string, I'll do 3, 3, 2, 2.
3, 2, 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it'll be cool. Once we get out there with it, but it was interesting going through the prototype process and, finally getting a prototype and going, okay, this is cool. And then, a couple of phone calls and emails back and forth, and another prototype shows up with some changes. And then it's like, oh, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So,
man, we're excited to see it.
That's a good question. Yeah. Now that you have been doing all the research for the 8 strings, and I know that about John Petrucci talks a lot about the haha moments. Mm-hmm. And the haha moments get into the Majesty, because he said that he would like to put his finger over this side of the neck, and why are we cutting here, and it makes it happen. Right now there is a guitar with that. The thing is, now that you have been developing the 8-string with him and Music Man, do you learn something new that maybe you're gonna add in the next John's guitars, 6 and 7s?
That's an interesting question. When the Majesty came out, it was so different as far as kind of guitar design goes, right? It's got its traditional elements, but it's, the technology for guitar building has certainly gone a lot further than what some guitar, how some guitars are made now. And I was kind of thinking, and I think John and I might have kind of talked about it one night, it's like, what now? Like the guitar is now, it's, John always says that the whole idea is the guitar should get out of your way. Right. Well, it does that, and it's kind of everything that he's ever wanted in a guitar. What now? And I think myself, I think we're kind of we're at a period now where we have to wait for technology to evolve again, in order to do something new. I think you're going to start seeing probably a lot of push towards more sustainable materials.
Yeah.
Which is already starting to happen with some manufacturers. So, but with as far as the like designing the 8-string, that was really all Drew at Music Man. Drew grabbed that project by the horns and said, okay, how do we do this? And there were discussions about, well, if you look at all the other 8 strings on the market, they either have this feature or they have this feature, so what's more, what are we going for? And so, yeah, I think when you guys when it finally comes to the public, you guys will go, okay, I get it now.
So I got a question that I know is probably in the back of Ellis's mind. Is it going to be a toggle switch? Please tell me it's going to be a toggle switch.
What do you mean by toggle switch?
A three-way toggle switch, the pickup switch.
Oh, yeah. Because the 5-way switch was only on the 10th anniversary.
Oh man, the 5-way switch it's the thing of nightmares for us.
It's too long.
We steer clear from that.
I like it personally, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So.
I mean, it's I can see the benefits of it when you're sitting down and planning something, if you want to plan something specific, but when you're live and doing like fast changes and stuff like that, you just, the 3-way is just, even sometimes even more than you need, sometimes you're just
right.
But yeah, that's a question that all we look at guitars now and it's like, does it have a machete?
We said that.
Like that's basically what we call it. Is like, does it have a machete? Okay,
we said that machete.
Take the machete out. Take that out. Take that out, man.
So
yeah, it's a 3-way. It's a 3-way.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's it. That's your nugget. That's your nugget on the 8-string now.
Peace of mind. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you so much. Peace of mind.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie.
Brought peace of mind to our lives. This one's also a Nellis question, which I'm gonna pass on to him, and then we'll talk more about the amps and stuff.
Sure.
It's more about you. Ellis likes to compare you to an F1 tech, because that's basically what you are. You're the tech of the F1 tech of guitars.
Yeah. Well, I think I think the way John plays and his style and the equipment that he uses is very, I equate it to Formula One, because it's all, there's nothing vintage.
No. So Ellis has a surgery question for tours about you. Go ahead, Ellis.
Okay.
When you are working and the tour that I saw in the guitar universe, that you have this bench with everything inside, from spare parts, bridges, new pickups, tuners, and all that. But I always have this question about when you found any tuning stability problems. And this question is good for those guys who have their Music Man at home. What do you have, like 3 main or 4 main points that you go directly to check? This could be the problem. This could be the problem. This could be the problem.
Yeah, definitely. More often than not, it's because you haven't stretched the strings out enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Remember with the Majesty guitars and all the JP guitars, the necks are pretty slim, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they tend to move a little more. So when you dive bomb the tremolo, you're releasing all that string tension on the neck. The neck's going to move, so making sure that the strings are stretched out all the way. Because it's a non-locking nut, sometimes there could be a little hang up there. Sometimes too, I've found with the locking tuners, you need to go back after you've stretched and just kind of make sure that they're snugged up. Yeah. And then after that, I mean, the last place that there would be a problem would be in the bridge. And that's usually, you know, because the string comes up through the bottom of the bridge and then comes over the saddle. If the string for some reason didn't get seated all the way in the block, which you usually would find out pretty quick when you stretch it, because it'll pop up and all of a sudden you got a bunch of loose string.
Yep.
So that's kind of the first place I go, is make sure the strings are stretched. Yeah, I'll go back through and stretch them again and tune up, move the bridge a little bit, kind of let the guitar sort of, you know, move the guitar around so it'll kind of settle into where it's supposed to be, you know, where it's comfortable being. And then I would look and see, okay, is the bridge level? You know, did it, you know, because even though you buy, let's say, a set of 10s, right, 10 to 46, there's going to be slight inconsistencies in those gauges, you know.
Yeah.
So sometimes you look at the bridge and go, oh man, it's pulled ever so slightly forward. Well, okay, you know, you just tweak those screws in the back a little bit on the tremolo claw, retune, shake it up. You know, it's a process, but once it gets locked in, you should be good.
Thank you for those grooves, by the way, behind the
exactly
back plate.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Don't thank me, thank Music Man.
No, yeah, but you know, it comes from, you know, the need to do things on the fly, and that makes our life just so much easier.
Yeah, mine too. That was one of those at a NAMM show. I walked up to Drew Montel and I said, hey, would it be possible to put slots in the back of the tremolo car? Because really what it was is I was tired of undoing 6 screws and then only putting 5 back in, because I would inevitably lose one.
Yeah.
And so it was like, you know, this would make things a lot more efficient.
Everything smoother. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So much faster.
Yeah.
So before go ahead, Alex. No, you go ahead.
No, it's okay. I remember in the guitar universe, in the 2.0, it was the last night where John has his concert, and he was playing, and I saw that you have the fuchsia sparkle, the princess.
The princess.
Oh yeah, the princess. Yeah.
And you were tuning the guitar, and okay, I'm sitting in here, and I have John here, and I have you right there. And I am like looking at both, and you were tuning the guitar and everything. And I saw that you found a problem, and you immediately, at the speed of the light, you take a screwdriver, turn out the guitar, move the spring, then stretch the tremolo. And I saw that John was finishing the song, and he doesn't look, he just give one and take the other, but you were photo finished exactly there, giving the guitar tuning work. You know, it was like, oh my God. Exactly that when the F1 make the pit stop, let's go.
Yeah.
It was from there, I take the F1, from there, I call you the F1 engineer tech.
Yeah. Well, that's see, so you caught it on a good night. You know, that's I kind of vaguely remember, but that was probably just one of those things where it's like, I need to fix this, you know, and I know I have time. And a lot of times, you know, I'm doing multiple things at once during a live show. You know, I'm tuning guitar, I'm watching him, I'm watching the amp rig, I'm listening to everything. But more often than not, I listen, because that's when you're going to hear a problem more than before you see it.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, you're listening for different, okay, I know a solo is coming up. He's going to go to a lead patch. So you hear the amp change, you hear the delay kick in, you're like, okay, cool, that's working. You know, I can go back to tuning or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, that's my job, you know, is to make sure that if I would have handed him that guitar, I would expect it. If I handed him that guitar and not done anything to it, he would have looked at me and gone, what happened? Why doesn't it feel right? you know, and that's so that's the ultimate goal is when he walks out on stage, all he has to do is play. He doesn't have to worry about, does it sound right? Is everything going to work? Are the guitars in tune? You know, and you know, you try and have more good days than bad days with all of that going on. And you strive for perfection. So, and I'd say we probably hit it about 98% of the time.
Have you had any major surgeries that you had to perform like mid-tour?
You know, occasionally I would have to replace a nut.
Oh wow. Okay.
Which isn't the easiest thing in the world to do on the road. But you know, other artists and other tours that I've done, usually there was more of that type of stuff going on. Like you'd be fixing an amp or, you know, rewiring a guitar or, you know, changing out parts or something like that. You know, usually with John, it's pretty much like everything is dialed before it ever leaves the studio, you know, before it ever goes out the warehouse door. So, occasionally, like, yeah, you'll get a piezo saddle that dies. So you gotta swap the bridge out, you know, as you've experienced yourselves. So, but it's, you know, it's not that big of a deal.
No, that's more, you know, just maintenance of the guitar.
Yeah.
Not every month or every 6 months maintenance, but it does happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes stuff like that'll happen just, you know, randomly while he's playing the guitar. He'll switch to a clean sound and all of a sudden there's no, you know, the piezo on the G string isn't sounding. You know, yes. It's like, man. Okay, well, I got to get through. We're either going to switch the guitar, or we're going to get through the song, and then I'll deal with it. So,
is there? Speaking of JP, you know, giving you like facial expressions and stuff, is there like a specific positive one that gives away like everything is perfect? Is there like a?
Yeah, and it's no expression. It's no. No acknowledgement.
Okay, so it's just,
you know, yeah. I know it sounds kind of weird, but the less he looks at me and the less he talks to me, you know, if he comes off, like I can tell when he's walking off stage for a guitar change, I can tell by the way he's walking that he needs to say something, you know, there's something going on.
Yeah.
Whether or not I've spotted it in advance, I don't know. Sometimes it's just like, you know, there's a guy with a video camera out in the crowd, you know, or I don't know, something random. Like, you know, I was playing the solo and I had this thought about, you know, the chorus pedal or something. I'm like, really? You were playing that solo and that's what you were thinking about? Okay. All right. Let's not tell anybody about that. Oh, well, now everybody knows. So yeah, really though, it's as long as he's not looking at me or running over in the middle of a song, we're good.
Basically good. Yeah. So he's out there working and everything's just clockwork.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, Maddie. So now the questions are getting now is when we're gonna get a little bit more
we're gonna get more geeky now.
Yeah, we're gonna get more
nerdy.
Yeah, we got like these are more like questions that we would see, you know, in forums that never got, you know, a satisfactory answer from like anybody who would comment or stuff like that. Like, I've seen this and I've seen that, and I say, let's get it straight from Maddie because he's the one who knows. Sure. Now, could we do a signal chain rundown?
Sure.
And could you explain us why things work this way? Because, for example, Ellis and I work with a helix because I don't have a fractal. He doesn't have a fractal yet. But we have been trying to.
Oh, that's a helix back there?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a helix.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought it was a fractal.
And mine is a floor unit. So I basically run the boogie with the Dreamscape, with the flashback, and with the wah pedal and the and the volume, and the rest of the effects. Well, and I have a phaser too that then actually JP gave to me, which is the Helix phaser, the
Helix phaser,
the little
oh yeah,
little yellow one,
DC
the yellow
pedal?
one, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the DC pedal, yeah. So I'm running all these. I changed my chorus into the front of the amp because, of course, Jimmy T told me, he was like, no, just slam that in the front. And I'm okay, cool. Let's try to get everything out of the way. And so we're trying to match things up, but we're worried about that little drawer and the MIDI changer and stuff like that. And if you would indulge us on a signal chain walkthrough, that would be awesome. We usually see like, okay, so this goes here and this goes here, this goes here, but the why of things, there's always a little bit of a.
All right, so we'll break it down into a few different blocks.
Cool.
Right, so it'll be a little easier to digest. Let's start with the piezo, because that's one part of the signal chain onto itself. So I'll skip the wireless system for now, because it's basically the same as having a cable. So so the guitar, the Majesty uses a TRS cable, tip ring sleeve cable. Some might call it a stereo cable. It's not stereo in that sense. It's just a 2 conductor cable, so you can have 2 different signals, right? So we've established that. The piezo signal goes down the ring conductor of that cable, which would be the I don't have one here in front of me, do I? Oh yeah, I do. Maybe. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
So this middle section here, that's the ring. So that's the tip, that's the ring, that's the sleeve. Sleeve is ground. Tip would be the magnetic pickup system, and the ring would be the piezo.
Okay.
Yeah, and the sleeve is common between them for shielding. Okay, so piezo comes down the ring. We have this AB box that says Fram Tone on it, and it was a Fram Tone chassis that does not have any sort of Fram Tone circuitry in it. It's a passive AB box. The only thing active in it is the LEDs to tell me which channel it's on.
Okay.
Right. So it's fully passive. The piezo, so the TRS cable comes in, and you can plug 2 TRS cables in at one time and switch AB, right? And it'll switch both the magnetic and piezo at the same time. And then it splits to 2 separate outputs.
Cool.
Right. The magnetic side and then the piezo side is ground lifted. So there's no ground buzzing.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So back to the piezo side of things, the TRS cable comes in, the piezo goes out. The first thing out from the output of the piezo is the TC body res pedal, which just gives it a little bit of that kind of acousticy, woody body sound. Right.
Yeah, like a little bit of resonance.
A little bit of resonance, yeah. And I think the knob is set at 12 o'clock or something. It's one of those, we found the setting, it never changes. That's where it is.
Cool.
From the body res pedal, we go to a radial active DI box, meaning it requires phantom power from the PA system to work. And then it goes out to the PA. So any effects on the piezo, like reverb or stuff like that, is all done by the audio guys on the PA and monitor system. We don't do any of that. So that's the piezo system. It's very simple. It's essentially just like plugging into an amp. It's just the body res pedal is the only thing in line with that, right? Now we jump over to the magnetic system. So we've come into the same AB box. We're going to go to the magnetic output. That now goes into the rig. And the first thing it hits is a RJM music tone saver box, which is an active buffer. The signal comes in. The one output goes to the rack wah. The second output of the tone saver goes to the tuner on the pedal board. That's where the signal comes. So the tuner is seeing right off the guitar.
Okay.
There's nothing else coming at it. It used to, sometimes if you put a tuner like after a chorus pedal and you're trying to tune and the chorus pedal's on, the tuner's doing this.
Yeah, it is going crazy all over the place.
Not good. So the tuner is straight off the guitar. So now we're into the rack wah, right? Mm-hmm. So now here's where the first block is. Imagine this. If you just have a bunch of pedals, right? Okay. You have a wah pedal, a compressor, an overdrive, a chorus, a phaser, flanger, whatever it is. And you daisy chain those pedals together, right? So you plug your guitar into the wah pedal, out of the wah, into the compressor, into the overdrive, whatever your order is, right? That's what's happening with the rack wah and the pedal drawer.
Okay.
It's just the MIDI switcher. All it is like it's just daisy chaining those pedals together in loops. So instead of just doing it with a little patch cable on the floor in front of you, the loops internally in the MIDI switcher are daisy chained.
Okay.
Right. And that allows us to control it by MIDI.
Yeah.
So all the pedals in the drawer are always on, right? And you're just turning the loop on and off, which is like turning the pedal on and off.
Yeah.
All right. So it's and then the signal flow of those pedals is just what I described: compressors first in loop 1, overdrives in loop 2, the phaser is in loop 3, the dreamscape is in loop 4, and the dreamscape in loop 5. For the last tour, I had to have an auto wah pedal and I had to have an octave pedal. So those two pedals are physically daisy chained together in the drawer, out of the first pedal into the second pedal. And then those are plugged into one loop. And I would, as we needed them, I would turn, like for the Frank Zappa section in Beyond This Life? Yeah. That's an auto wah, right? So for that song, I would pull out the drawer, I would turn the auto wah on, and he would activate it from the pedal board.
Okay.
Right. And then what did we use the octave for? It was a song later in the set, and I would shut the auto wah off and turn the octave pedal on.
Okay.
And so the same button on the MIDI pedal board controlled that loop, but I physically turned the pedals on and off.
Okay.
So that's how that works. So that block is, if you just had all those pedals spread out in front of you on the floor, daisy chained together, and had a power supply powering all of them. That's what that is.
Just like in a really elegant little drawer that looks magical.
Yeah. But it looks a lot more than what it really is. It really is just having all of those pedals on the floor in front of you, daisy chained. Cool. But instead of having to step on individual pedals, you can do together. You can do it from a MIDI pedal board, and you can set up presets to turn on multiple things at once. And then out of the pedal board drawer, we go to, this is the secret sauce now, the Mimic pedal.
Oh.
The TC Mimic pedal. You guys check that out?
No.
Okay. Oh. So it's kind of like a doubler, but it's random. So it works off of the transients of the picked note. Okay. And it adjusts the time and threshold of the double based on the transient. So when you kick it on, here's the best way to describe it. Like you've heard like Randy Rhoads solos, right?
Yeah, of course.
On like Blizzard of Oz or Diary of a Madman, right? Diary of a Madman. Anyway, you know how when he's soloing and it sounds like two guitars because he doubled the part? That's what the Mimic does. That's the best way to describe what it does.
Okay, so basically it gives you Are you splitting this stereo?
Yeah. So
So
it comes in mono, goes out stereo into the two separate JP2Cs.
Nice. So it gives you that
So
Nice.
recording, that recording effect that they're two hard pan guitars.
yeah,
Kind of. Okay.
yeah, a little bit. It's so John used to do this thing years ago with a 2290 delay unit. It was a 7 millisecond delay on one side. So what it basically did is it took the guitar sound from this to this.
Yeah.
Super wide.
Yeah.
7 millisecond delay, no feedback. It's they call it, I think they call it the Haas effect. It's like anything under 9 milliseconds, it just feels bigger.
It's like a spreader.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what the Mimic is doing with a little bit more variation in it.
Okay.
Because it's working off of those transients.
Ellis, we didn't know this, man.
We didn't know this
at all.
Yeah. The Mimic. Yeah.
It really was the secret sauce.
Yeah. It when it came out, they sent us one and we were like, "Wow, this thing's amazing." So and you can select the amount of dubs, they call it doubles, 1, 2, or 3. And I think ours is just on 1. I'd have to look at it again. It's in the back of the rack. It's like it's a set and forget. That's where it is. Like the body res. We found the setting. Just forget it's there.
Just stays there. Yeah.
Yeah. So now is where we're now full stereo, right? So think about each head is connected to its own cabinet, and they're independent of each other now, right? So 1 amp is the left side and 1 amp is the right side. So any change you make on one, you have to do on the other, right? Which is a bunch of fun. And then, so we've established that that's pretty straightforward, right? Two amps, 2 cabinets, right? Stereo. Now the last block of the chain is the axe effects, right? Or in your case is the helix.
Mm-hmm.
The axe effects has stereo ins and stereo outs, as does the helix. So channel 1 left, in and out, is plugged into the effects loop of 1 amp. Channel 1 right, in and out, is plugged into the effects loop of the other amp. So the axe effects is seeing full stereo input and outputting full stereo. So everything going through it is stereo. Right? And then and that's it. So, back in the old days with all those big gigantic racks with, 3 delay processors and a 2290 and an Eventide harmonizer and a this and a that and the other thing, that's all in the axe effects now, or the helix, or whatever processor you're using. Multi-effects processor.
You don't need a fridge or 2. You just have space in the rack.
Yeah. And it's there's something very nostalgic and cool about those old rigs, and he still has all of them,
man.
But that's a lot to move around.
Mm-hmm.
You get a rack that weighs 1,000 pounds, that costs a lot of money to move. So wow. With the axe, we've been using the axe effects now since 2009, and it in itself, the Fractal family of products have come a long way because technology has allowed for that. And now you have all of the other thing like the helix, and there's one called Head Rush, I think. I've never tried that out, and there's what's the new one that just came out?
Neural DSP.
DSP. That one. Yeah, so they're all, it's basically just they're all computers, right? That have this signal processing in it. So Fractal was kind of the first one that was, in my mind anyway, was like on a pro level. When they came out, it was, this unit meant business. The Ultra, I think, was the first one or something like that. Yeah. So And you know, as they've evolved, we've evolved with it. And thankfully, with Matt Picone and Cooper Carter, you know, I could tell you a quick story about the Fractal. Is we were down in South America, in Argentina. It was our first time out with it, and John and Matt had done a programming session in New York, and I wasn't there. I was at home, but everything got dialed in, sent the gear off to South America, and it just wasn't like coming together. And it was a big learning curve trying to figure out, you know, I knew how to program a 2290. I knew how to program an H4000. I knew how, or, you know, whatever it was, the 4000, you know, I knew how to program a TC M3000 delay. I knew where to go to find all those parameters. I didn't really know where to go in the Fractals. So it was like, you know, I'm losing my mind trying to figure it out. And John and I were both trying to figure it out at the same time. And I've got Matt Picone on the phone. We're standing in Buenos Aires. We were getting ready to film. Oh no, that was, sorry, this was the tour before. We were playing Luna Park in Buenos Aires. And I've got Matt Picone on the phone, and he's trying to walk me through how to change something. And he goes, you know what? Can you hook up a MIDI interface in your laptop and get on the internet? And I went, yeah, give me a few minutes. So get everything hooked up. And this was before the Fractals had USB on it. So you had to carry around like an actual MIDI interface.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hook this thing up, get on the internet. He sends me a link to this thing called, I think it was called GoToMeeting or something like that. It's an online collaboration thing. And he took control of my laptop, and using the editing software for the Fractal on my laptop, him in New Jersey, me in South America, in Buenos Aires, we told him over the phone what we wanted to change. And you could see the cursor on my computer start to move around, and you'd see things happening. And John and I just stood there, looked at each other and went, this is the coolest effing thing I've ever seen in my life. Could you imagine what can happen now?
Yeah.
And so, you know, we've had many programming sessions since then, to the point now where we're pretty well dialed with everything. You know, we don't really change the settings in the Fractal all that much anymore.
John told us that you guys had successfully basically cloned his entire rig to the Fractal.
Yeah.
So that's pretty badass, man. I mean,
that's pretty amazing.
Just to be able to mimic the whole thing.
Yeah, and surpassed, you know, what the old rigs did, you know, as far as the types of effects that you can do. You know, it's just really mind-boggling how deep the programming on all of these devices go.
Yeah, you just keep programming on and on patches. Yeah. So the way that we look at this, and this is why we started the whole research group, is because, you know, you guys have taken the time and have done the work all these years to get these, you know, what we would call perfect settings and perfect scenarios within, you know, tonality and musicality.
Sure.
What we do is basically go there, and then if we have any particularities to each one of us, then we will tweak just a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. But
I gotcha.
Like basically, Ellis likes a lot more crunch than I do in his crunch. His crunch sounds more high end than mine.
Okay.
Mine sounds just a little bit more bassy, just because I like to, for example, when I play ska, I mostly play with distortion, which is a Puerto Rican ska thing, a band called Sol de Menta, which I got really into when I was a kid. These guys are really good.
Oh, cool.
Like
really good musicians.
Yeah, they're amazing. And most of their like more Latin stuff and kind of ska stuff and stuff like fusion stuff, they would play with distortion. So Tito would basically play instead of just, you know, doing the upskank kind of thing, they would go I kind of complemented a little bit with the bass. So I
Gotcha.
like my bass to oomph a little bit more. But that's basically the only difference between what John puts out on Instagram, because we take the screenshot, we go directly to the JP2C, and we're like, okay, let's see what works. And then if I need a little bit more of that, then I'll tweak it just a little bit. You know, it's kind of like, you know, trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to do that. We're not trying to do that.
Yeah. Well, see, like my preference is I like a little bit less gain than like where John would set it.
Okay.
Right. You know, I like one of my favorite guitar tones on record is from the Van Halen 1984 album. The song Drop Dead Legs, in the middle where it's that breakdown and he's backed off the volume on the guitar a little bit and he's doing and you can hear him cranking up the volume on the guitar a little bit to get a little more gain out of it.
Yeah.
That's probably like, if I'm going for a guitar tone, that's
the one.
Me personally, I'm going for. Yeah. I dig that for whatever reason. It just really always resonated with me. But then like I plug into John's rig for line check, and it's like, wow, this just sounds amazing.
Beautiful.
You know, just it's we call it varying degrees of awesomeness.
We agree.
What it ends up being.
We agree. We agree.
Yeah.
That T-Rex and chocolate cake, which actually called the lead sound to us, the last one from like the last couple of records. That's more like chocolate, Willy Wonka chocolate river, man. It's not even cake anymore. That's just like, man, it's liquid Cadbury right there, liquid Willy Wonka. It's like a Wonka bar, bro.
Nice and versatile. Nice.
Yeah,
and very versatile. Yeah. That's why I like from John sound that is, it can go from very heavy to very mellow, mid-range, versatile. The cleans are one of the most gorgeous cleans I ever heard from the guitar players out of the John Petrucci, man.
Yeah,
it's crystal clear.
You know, I think with, you know, John as a guitar player, you know, he's just a lot of his tastes and sensibilities for tone are the same as a lot of other guitar players, you know, and what he looks for in a guitar and what he looks for in an amp tone and effects. I think kind of guitar players in general all are going for that vibe, you know, they everybody kind of falls into that, like, oh yeah, that guitar feels amazing. That's, you know, so with everything that he uses, you know, it's like, it's kind of, I think that's why it really resonates with other musicians, other guitar players, because it's kind of, it makes sense to everybody, you know, like this switch is in the right spot. Wow. I never would have thought about why the switch is there until, you know, he said, yeah, well, because it was in the way when it was up in this other spot. So, you know, all of that type of stuff. And it's really neat to see everybody, you know, you guys and all the other guitar players that I know are like, oh yeah, well, I get it now, you know, yeah, that is a great amp tone, or, you know, and that's the cool thing, like about the JP2C is it does John's tone, right? And 100%.
Yeah.
But it does so much other stuff too. You know, you can get, it doesn't matter what type of music you're into playing, you know, that amp will do anything. Like you said, Alice, the cleans are, you could jack the volume up on that all the way to 10 and it's still not going to break up.
No, man.
Know, the headroom on that clean channel was amazing.
Beautiful.
And, you know, same with the guitars too. It's like, you look at the Majesty and you go, well, that's you know, aesthetically, it looks very futuristic, and I'm not sure I could get into that. But then you pick it up and you go, oh, wow, this thing, it's amazing. You know, It's awesome. And no matter what type of music you play, you know, like ska, right? You're using a Majesty to play ska.
Dude, I mean, yeah.
Amazing.
And it sounds great. It sounds great, man.
Sounds great.
It's an instrument to play anything. And that's one of the things that we try to explain to our non-believer friends, as we call them. Because there are people who are, in their comfort zone, and it's very, very hard to get them out of that.
Yeah.
Especially if they gravitate towards a decade or a style, and don't branch out that much. It's, oh, but that's a high gain thing. And it was like, dude, it's high gain if you crank up the gain.
Yeah, right.
That's it. It's high gain because it has the possibility to go high gain.
Yeah.
But if you want to stay mid-range, or if you want to go low range, it can do it beautifully too. And it can do it better than basically anything right now. I mean, you got all the options. I mean, you don't run out of channels. You have 2 graphic EQs to bounce around. It has a out. I mean, cab clone. This thing is the future.
Yeah.
Head amplifiers. It does everything that you expect it to do, and a whole bunch of stuff that you have no idea until you try it out.
Yeah, the MIDI on that amp is a nice touch. That was a good.
I got everything connected together.
I'm glad that happened. Yeah. Well, again, it all comes down to designing a product, and if you've done it a certain way for so long, like a guitar manufacturer, you make bolt-on neck guitars. That's what you're geared for, right? So to push into something that's a neck through design, that's a big undertaking and a big change in mindset. Same with incorporating the MIDI on the amplifier, or with pedals now. Pedals used to be just analog, Boss pedals. It was just analog circuit, right? Now they're running, there's companies that are running DSP chips, so you can do multiple effects in a little stop box. So gearing your mindset to those types of developments is being open to that stuff, I think, is important. For all this tonal possibility stuff.
Man.
So, but I still sometimes revert back to old mentality for stuff.
Mean, it's when you look at it, if you want to keep it simple, there's a stop box, there's the amp, you just plug it in.
I said to somebody one day, I was plugging in the rig one day, and I've got all these cables, pedalboard looms and speaker cable looms, this, that, and the other thing. And I said, man, remember back in the days when it took one cable to hook up a guitar to an amplifier? And that was it. Like you carried the whole thing with 2 hands, an amp in one hand, a guitar in the other. That was it.
There you go. Good luck. Pop.
So yeah. So what we're doing now is essentially the same thing. It's packaged a little different.
Yeah.
So
and then man, like I said, we've seen it work live so many times. We hear it work in records, and it's just that tone mission gives us a mission, to keep tweaking and keep looking for stuff. I've just started learning recording a couple of years ago. So from Jimmy T's interview, I got a lot of insight on how to do things after the rig. Yeah. And because once you got the rig down, you want to keep that sound as legit as possible. Yeah. Because that's, man, once you have the sound, it's like, now let's record it, and me. It sounds like a mosquito's buzzing in your ear, like, what did I do wrong? Right. Now that I have this huge monster sound. So all of this has been a learning curve that you guys have facilitated for all of us.
Literally.
From the standard to changing strings now, since you did that Toman interview.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I mean, now everybody wants to change strings like Maddie, because it's more efficient. It's more efficient, and
it's more efficient.
I mean, we've always, tried to keep the measurements like you told everyone at camp. And guys, for those of you who are listening to this now, investing in something like John Petrucci's Guitar Universe, if you're a serious musician or just an enthusiast on basically your either your equipment or your guitars, it's the education that you will receive there and the opportunity to network with the people who know to do what you want to do is incalculable. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity for you to grow, learn, and network with the people who know what to do, know to do what you want to do. And this is going to be my second time going to Guitar Universe, and basically, I have to find Mr. Doug Doppler. I've said this a couple of times, and I have to thank him so much because he pulled me aside one time, and I'm like, Doug, I'm trying to, have this YouTube channel, and it does have a growing community, and this and this and that. And he pulled me aside and said, like, this is what you want to do to get, brands to get behind what you're doing, and kind of like keep a similar mindset and how to grow what you're doing. And that helped me so much. And that's not counting, the time that I spent with you, the time that I spent with JP, the time that I spent with Tosin, just every single individual there is an expert at their field. And to get that opportunity, it's like
those are the big guys.
Yeah.
You're hanging out with the big guys.
It's basically, if you can do it, if you can manage to go take a nosedive in, because you'll never regret it. And I am looking forward to like late nights with you and doing the whole,
I'm looking forward to it too.
This is gonna be
the best.
Yeah, man. And I know we got to let you go in a bit, because I know we have to.
I'm good. I got a little bit more time. What I do need to do though is I need to unplug my headphones and plug my iPad in.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
It's starting to get low.
Yeah, don't worry. You go ahead.
So can you still hear me okay?
We can hear you okay.
Maybe just plug this in.
If worst comes to worst, I can give you a little boost.
A little bump. Excellent.
We hear you. Excellent. You're
okay, good.
Yeah, we hear you. Sam.
So,
cool.
Stepping away a little bit from the JP side of things, could you tell us a little bit more about your DT responsibilities and stuff, like more the Dream Theater big picture?
So again, I guess the easiest way to explain it, we can kind of put it into blocks. So there's two different avenues. First avenue is the touring stuff. And so for live stuff, I'm John's guitar tech. That's first and foremost. I'll set up risers or help with whatever needs to be done. But I'm first and foremost of John's guitar tech. When we're not touring, that's where my job gets more multifaceted. So I don't know if John told you or Jimmy T told you, but Dream Theater has their own studio now, Dream Theater HQ, right?
Oh yeah.
So I guess I've now, my title is sort of studio manager, maybe. I've heard that bantered around. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway. So, when we're in studio mode, before we had our own studio, I would have to coordinate logistics of getting all the equipment sent over to whatever recording studio we were going to use. Whether it was, in the past, it was Cove City Sound Studios in Glen Cove, New York. On the last record, it was the Yonder Barn. So that there's that type of coordination, calling a freight company and saying, I need a truck to pick gear up from here and deliver it to there on this date at this time. I handle accounting. So, all receipts flow through me, and spreadsheets and weekly phone calls with the business manager and, all of that stuff. So, go grocery shopping, and up at Yonder Barn, we were cooking more than we would normally do. So it was like, hey guys, we're going to grill chicken tonight. Okay, cool. So I'd go to the grocery store. I'd have to make sure I got enough stuff for, however many people were there. And laundry, something as mundane as laundry. you know, whether I take it and drop it off somewhere to get done, or if I go do it myself. Transportation, you know, making sure like if somebody all of a sudden needs to go to a doctor's appointment, or, you know, something comes up, whether they drive themselves or I need to take them. Travel arrangements for guys, you know, so booking flights, car services, whatever needs to be done. So on the studio side of and also maintaining the gear for not just John, but everybody. So,
wow.
you know, changing drum heads, setting up the bass stuff. Jordan, hey, you know, I've got these 3 new keyboards at my house. Can you come get them? And I want to bring them into the studio. Okay. You know, drive up to his house and load up the keyboards and bring them down here and set them up and whatever. So, so it's a much more intensive job.
Yeah.
On the studio side of things. And thankfully with Jimmy T, you know, he deals with all of the recording aspect and that type of stuff. And then I handle all of the logistical situations. When it came time for that, we were mostly done with the Astonishing. We were loading out of Cove City. We were going to do a festival tour in Europe. So I was loading everything out of Cove City for a couple of months. And we needed a bass tech for John Mayung. His normal guy couldn't make it. And I asked Jimmy T, I said, do you have a passport? And he went, no. And I said, can you get one?
You won't get one.
And he went, I don't know. And I was going to hire him to tech for John Mayung. You know, he's a bass player. So, you know, it's pretty straight. John Mayung's pretty straightforward when it comes to being his tech. So it worked out that we ended up getting somebody else who had worked for John in the past. So when we came back to finish up the Astonishing, we were at Germano Studios in the city mixing. And Jimmy T had called me up and says, man, I'd really like to come down and check out the studio and, you know, see what you guys are doing. Yeah, sure. Come on down, you know? And at that point we had known that we were going to, the live show was going to be pretty intensive as far as video goes. And there was a lot of stuff, you know, the Astonishing record is a very dense record with, you know, orchestration and choirs and all sorts of stuff going on in the background. So I had called up management. I said, you know, we need a guy who can handle all of this kind of the playback stuff for the show, because it's all tied in with the video and it all has to be synced together. And it's, you know, it's not a job. It's not a secondary job. It needs somebody. And they said, okay, well, you know, you can go hire somebody. So when Jimmy T came down, I took him to lunch and said, hey, how'd you like to go on the road for a while? And he went, okay. And that's really kind of what I think cemented him in the organization, is his unrelenting pursuit of making that show happen. And because of him, it happened, you know, it went off without a hitch every night.
That's actually the show that I first met you at in the Chicago theater. I remember I walked in with an artisan and I was taking it out of the case. You're like, can I see your guitar? And I'm like, yeah, of course. You're like, I have one just like it. I'm like, no. And so we got one just like it next to you. I'm like, okay, cool, man. Yeah. And that show was amazing. I mean, it's one of those records that some people just don't understand. And that's, I loved the Astonishing. I still love it. It's one of my favorite things about Dream Theater. There's just their ability to do something completely different and out of the norm. And it's not that different for Dream Theater to do a concept album. They just went into it a little bit further. And man, I love this so much. I got the guitar, I got everything, you know. It's one of those records that really, really spoke to me. And people were like, oh, no, because people were expecting a metal record. at that point. They were expecting a metal record. I think that was the expectation was like, oh, Dream Theater's got to do like Train of Thought kind of thing. And it's like, dude, you can't expect a Dream Theater record. First of all, that's something that you can't do, because you never know what's going on in those minds, and you're never going to know, because there's something there for everyone. And if you accept Dream Theater as something unexpected, you'll always be mind blown. You'll always be amazed, because it's not, people have been asking for something like Images and Words since Images and Words. Right. You know, it's like, why can't this sound more like Images and Words? It's, dude, that was so many albums ago. Did you not learn the lesson? You know,
they need to evolve.
Yeah, exactly. If as an artist, if you're not evolving, you know, then I don't really think you're being true to your art, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's one of the things I told John. I was like, John, I feel that this was the right thing to do, man. Don't let people tell you otherwise, because it's an amazing piece of work, man. I love it.
You know, I think that record, my feeling on that record is I like it too. I think it's a great record. I think it's one of those ones where in a few more years, people are going to pick it up and listen to it and go, aha.
Holy crap. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think people, they were expecting one thing and it didn't meet whatever their expectations were. But I think as a Dream Theater record, it met every expectation.
And more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, but yeah, back to the you know, the being the team and everything. Yeah, we have a you know, Jimmy T and I built this headquarters. You know, him and I have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this place. And you know, the fruits of our labor have paid off, because John did his solo record here. We did the latest Dream Theater record here. We did Liquid Tension Experiment here. And, you know, it made all of those sleepless nights and stressing out about things kind of melt away, you know, for me and for him. You know, we had to make a lot of decisions about things, and that just goes to show how good of a team we are. Yeah. And with John, you know, being a major part of that too, it's like, you know, the three of us collectively have the same mindset when it comes to guitar tone and recording and whatever it is, you know, and we all have our strengths, and it melds really well together. So yeah.
And then I mean,
very fortunate.
After all this work and all this recording at DT Central, and I mean, not to mention that, you know, it's a lot easier to have somewhere where everything's just, you know, everything, every single question and every single need is met at that place. You know, you don't have to go, you don't have to go to X Studio or this place to get this done. And you've proven it with 3 records. I mean, it's incredible. And it all came out of, you know, the worst case scenario that any musician has ever had, which is, you know, being locked down during a pandemic, which is, it's brought out the best in a lot of people. And this is clearly proof that Dream Theater and the whole team behind Dream Theater can't be stopped, man. This is just.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, I was talking to, I was telling our management when they had come down here, we did some stuff down here and they stopped in and I said, you know, you realize that if we had not had this place, we would not have been able to do this record that we're currently doing. John wouldn't have done a solo record. LTE, you know, everybody would have just sat dormant.
Yeah.
And so it was a good payoff, you know, at the end to go, all right, this was a smart decision, even though everything, putting it together, it was a big undertaking, and just, are we really sure we're doing the right thing? Yeah, we did.
It's basically giving birth to an idea, you know. It's a
yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's yeah, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, man, you guys gave birth to that place. It's and now it's already legendary. In a year, you guys have made that place a legendary place to record. I mean, first John Petrucci solo record in 15 years, first the Liquid Tension in 20, and now the new DT 15. That right there makes that place legendary. I mean,
and the live DVD was mixed here.
Really? See, we didn't know that. We didn't know that.
Yeah, Jimmy T mixed it here.
Man, that's and
the Christmas the charity single that we did.
And I might add, Jimmy T did mix my latest Cartman.
I heard. I haven't checked it out yet.
My latest Cartman cover, Barbara Ann at DT Central, which blew my mind. We were almost at the end of his interview, and he's like, if I can make a request, and I'm like, you're gonna have to layer this. You're gonna have to work at this. We're gonna do Barbara Ann by the Beach Boys. Man, all the things that went up in my head, that's the thing I least expected in my life. But it's I don't know, man. The entire work and all of this whole year of struggles is reflected into those 3 records, and it's such a beautiful thing to come out of such a struggling time.
It's from my point of view, I'm very fortunate to be able to stay busy during the last year, because a lot of my friends weren't and still aren't. So that was incredibly fortunate. But I think too, it's sort of like for people who want to be creative, I think it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because people now all of a sudden had extra time and didn't really have any excuses to, be more creative. Instrument sales went up last year. The amount of people putting stuff out online, streaming, all this stuff, just there's so much stuff out there now. And imagine 20 years ago, if this had happened, there wouldn't have been these kind of outlets, all the streaming platforms and just the internet community in itself. So, it's definitely a hard thing to go through for a lot of people, but I think too, it spawned a lot of creativity.
I definitely played more last year than I did any other year on the road. I mean, I touring and doing my regular shows, I do 300 shows a year plus covers.
Wow.
That's my grind every year. That's all I do. I'm an entertainer. That's what I do. I played every single day last year. Every single day. I was sitting here in the front of this computer, basically internet busking, just on any platform, be it YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, everywhere, every single platform that you can imagine. I tried it. And I think that's what kept me both sane and surviving, because, unless you have hundreds of thousands or even into the millions of followers, you're not getting paid enough to do this for a living.
Right.
So, but the need for people to be entertained and the need of the entertainer to do their thing, we kept each other up, and just going day by day. And I'm still streaming. I'm not going to quit streaming, because it's. I mean, I've gone back to live shows. I've done my fair amount of shows since late April. I mean, not every week, because, things are still getting back up and businesses need to, build a little bit of, place to stand on to then, hire musicians.
Sure.
But I did 4 shows a couple of weeks ago, and it felt like I never left it. It was like, I just did 4 shows. It feels, and it's just a whole new way to look at the entertainment world. And I need to keep doing it, because who knows when I might need it. And I've met so many people, Maddie, like around the world, that are just incredible musicians that I wouldn't have met otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. I come from an era where I used to program on DOS, right?
Wow.
When I was a kid, I used to write my own computer games, and when I was a kid, and then I got out of it. And, I know enough about computers now to check my email and that type of stuff. But, all of this streaming, so like Twitch, I remember talking to Herman Lee from Dragon Force, because he's very big on Twitch.
Yeah, he's on Twitch.
And he was trying to explain it to me, and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't. In fact, Jimmy T and I went to dinner the other night, and we were talking about the whole internet streaming thing and monetizing, and I don't understand how it works. So at the camp, if we get a few minutes, I want you to try to explain it to me.
Yeah,
I don't want to do it here, but like I said, this is a great time for people to be creative and to use all of these new platforms to at least help out. I don't understand how it works, but I still go buy vinyl records. So.
It's Ellis has done some customizing to his JPs that he would like to show you. Ellis, you want to show him the back of your
yes, at least in this one, in this one I upgrade to stainless steels frets, because there was nickel and they were not worn, because I get this guitar in great conditions. But stainless steel, in the other hand, is a thing that you don't have to give so much attention. They're just there. They will long last more than your life.
Yeah.
What I did in this one, I always like to get the strings like as gummy as possible, soft to bend. What I did in here is I add high tension springs, and I lowered them only for 2.
Okay.
And I get a really, really loud acoustic noise of this guitar with this. And also I add this massive brass claw. If you see, it's not a bent piece of metal.
No, it's pretty huge.
It's made by CNC machine.
Right.
Yeah, and the guitar gets really, really loud. In this one, I have these mods in, let me see if the cable holds. In Dargy.
Yep.
In Dargy, I changed.
That's a great color.
Yes, I love it.
It's a beautiful guitar, man.
In Dargy, I also upgrade to stainless steel frets. But in this one, because this one is 2009 and the nut was very worn out. And I actually found a very talented luthier. He copied the nut in Tusk and he made the compensations.
Oh, wow.
Maybe you can see it there.
Yeah.
He made the compensation. This one also is running with high tension springs. I upgrade the rear cap.
Nice.
and I have to the claw. In my third JP, which is the Stealth Black, I was able to upgrade the saddles to Graphtec.
Okay.
And hook up. The thing is that these materials got like a lot of good properties for the magnetic sound. So the guitar will sound a lot more warm. The strings will last forever because they never break strings. And one good thing is that the sustain change, and they will give you a little bit more mid-range, so the guitar sound more mellow.
Sure. Interesting.
Sure. And obviously, it's great to share this with you because you are like the guy who most knows about JPs, Majesties. And for that reason, I always will want to ask you that, do you have like something that you just have to make to John's guitars once they arrive? Maybe change spring position, something that you said, these guitars are great, but this is something that I do personally to make them better.
Not really. You know, it's kind of over the 20 years that he's been with Music Man. You know, they've kind of, John and Music Man, and then myself included in some of that, have kind of run the gamut of what works and what doesn't work. So, you know, the stainless steel fret thing was a Music Man decision. They wanted to switch over to stainless steel frets. They sent John a guitar with stainless steel frets. He goes, it feels good to me. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, that was one of those changes where it was, if you don't notice it, great. You know, if you notice, then something might not be right.
Yeah.
I like the stainless steel frets because, yeah, I don't ever have to worry about wear or anything like that. You know, it's one less thing on my list of stuff to worry about. You know, as far as what I didn't know until later was John was going through a period where he was changing string gauges, and every time he would change a string gauge, the factory would change. So if he went from 10s to 9s, what I didn't know was they removed a spring. So if the guitar has 3 springs in it, when it comes from the factory, it's set up with 10s. If it's got 2, it's set up with 9s.
9s. Oh.
Yeah. We've been on 10s for a long time now, and I don't think we're going to change anymore.
Yeah,
so
I think
that's
we're
fine.
all on 10s now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the 10s forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the feel that he likes for 10s, it's 3 springs, and they're just 3 in a line. I have checked out some of like the noiseless springs from FU Tone.
This one's
yeah, and I did get a Adam over there sent me a brass block for a Floyd Rose, which I haven't. I put it in a JP16, and I don't remember what the outcome was because we didn't really use the guitar all that much. But you know, as far as anything I do special to John's guitars when they come from the factory, I'll stretch the strings, tune them up, check out the setup. You know, sometimes I might have to lower the action a little bit. Sometimes not. It just kind of depends. You know, I don't remember if there's any one person that does the setups for the guitars that come to John, but I think they just go through the normal production line, you know, and then they're pulled for, you know, whatever the order ticket is on that guitar. If it's to come to John, then it'll make its way here. So, you know, it's the way they come out of the factory, the way you guys get them is pretty much how, you know, it's how we get them.
Cool.
So, yeah, there was a period where I was sending measurements to Music Man, you know, it was measuring the string height off of the 5th fret, the 12th fret, 17th fret, you know, doing all of this stuff. And that kind of helped get a more uniform setup procedure, I guess.
It kind of like get a standard out of the factory.
Yeah, but those guys are amazing. You know, I've been to the
Yes.
factory a few times, and I at one point I want to go back out there again just for a couple of days and hang out with the setup guys, the final set assembly guys, just because I don't know how many guitars they do per day, but the consistency is amazing. You know, so I want to see how they do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it'd be pretty cool to see how they keep how do they keep, you know, all these to standard.
Yeah, and they're, you know, it's not like one guy does Majesties and one guy does Valentines and one guy does Stingray. I mean, they're touching every single instrument that comes through there.
Wow.
So yeah, they're really talented. Those guys can't say enough good stuff about everybody at Music Man.
So Maddie, what about your favorite guitar, man? What is the one out of all? Well, you must have seen, man. I mean, I can't even begin to speculate how many guitars you've had in your hand, gone through your hands through all these years, and especially when new ones come in, you're like, oh, new colors. Okay, here we go. Boom. I mean,
yeah. I mean, when you start getting into that, there's so many. But I think for me personally, and I love all the guitars in John's line, right? From the JP6 all the way through the Majesty. To me, the Majesty is kind of its own thing, right? It's not like, aside from the neck profile and the pickups and where all the knobs and switches are placed, it's not like the bolt-on guitar. It's totally separate. So I always, in my mind, I just classify the Majesty as its own thing, and it's amazing. Yeah. But out of the bolt-on models, my personal favorite's the JP15.
Nice.
Yeah. Gorgeous guitar.
I like gorgeous guitar. I like maple fingerboards. I always have. Okay. So that's why I gravitate to that one. But I've got well, actually the JP6 I have is one of the Neptune Blue with roasted maple fingerboards. So yeah, I got Beautiful. One of those. I've got what else do I have? I've got a Purple Monarchy Majesty. I've got
one of my favorites, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've got a 10th anniversary guitar, which is great. I love that guitar too. That's kind of its own beast with the super flat fingerboard radius and the big frets and the 5-way switch. I've got a JP15. I've got I'm missing something here. Oh, I've got a JP12 7-string, which is a cool guitar.
Nice.
So like the 11 and the 12 were pretty similar. That was a period where things were changing kind of rapidly, fingerboard radiuses and fret sizes and stuff like that. And then the 13 is really cool. I don't have one of those. I'd like to get one at some point.
13 is cool.
Yeah, the 13 it's a great. It was kind of like the culmination of all the new stuff in one guitar. It was that's the one.
Yeah.
What else do I have? I've got a Reflex Game Changer guitar. That's a really cool guitar. It's its own. It's got a very unique feel. To it. Yeah, I love the Axis. It's weird. I have kind of a love-hate is sort of the wrong description, but you get the idea.
Yeah,
I love the Axis, but sometimes I'll pick one up and I just can't gel with it. And then I'll put it down and I'll pick it up and it's like, oh yeah, this is great. So, but it's a great guitar.
Not your conventional shape or feel, the Axis.
Right. I do love the neck on the Axis. I really do. But some of the other, I mean, I love it overall, but some days I had one and I would pick it up and I'm like, it's not working, and other days I'd pick it up and this is the greatest thing ever. But of course I'm incredibly spoiled with John's guitars.
Yeah. Dude. Right now, I think the best case scenario for even, just looking at guitars, that's like, man, I mean, I look at my Majesties. I've since then dedicated to playing Majesty.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a JP7 and I use it for certain things, but Majesty is my thing now because it's just, man, I don't know. I can't say enough about it. And it just really, this is something that's been said a million times. So it just makes things easier.
Yeah.
It makes things better. I mean, easier from the playability to the sounds to the tone quality. Everything just happens. If you just got to worry about playing correctly, and the rest happens.
and even at that point, you almost don't have to play correctly.
Even if you're playing incorrectly, you're gonna sound cool, man.
Guitar does it for you.
What is that? What is that funky chord? And it's like, oh, we're kind of a funky chord right now. Yeah, man.
I had a buddy of mine that had a George Lynch ESP guitar, and that guitar you would pick it up and it would make you play like George. Like I would all of a sudden be able to do all this weird shreddy stuff that I could never do before. And I really think it's because the guitar was, you know, made for
him. Yeah.
Made for him. And that's what he did. So, you know, I think with John's guitars though, it does all of that, but you can do anything with it.
Yeah.
You know, you can play any style of music. You can play, you know, anything with it.
We're talking to John, and there's a lot of people who play his guitars and don't know who he is.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people who don't even play metal.
Yeah.
There's people playing country with this. There's people playing like electronic music with this.
Yeah.
And Majesties are, I mean, you know, for you know, because Music Man isn't a huge operation like maybe, you know, Gibson is worldwide in making guitars, you know, and amounts of guitars.
Yeah.
But man, Majesties right now are like in the highest demands for guitar players. And it's just because of that, because it's an instrument that just helps you do the job, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's the, you know, all the different versions of it, you know, the different wood combinations. Like I said, they're all in the same vein, but you know, they all lend themselves to different things too. So, but yeah, I mean, I've seen videos of like one of the guys that plays with the Eagles, right? Like he was, you know, I mean, he's playing a multitude of different guitars, but like all of a sudden he's playing a JP guitar.
Yeah.
You know, on stage with the Eagles, like, wait, what? Really? And you know, the country guys, like, especially when you watch like the music award shows and stuff, and they have the live entertainment. You know, you see a lot of those guys, and they're sporting a JP guitar.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, cool, man. You need to look out the window some more. You know,
Yeah, man.
It's a fine instrument.
Window some more.
They're incredible instruments, and
instruments.
They're becoming a staple in you know, in tone and sound in general. It's not, you know, people see John Petrucci and they see his guitars, and you know, to the extremes that he goes, you know, the ballad end and you know, the whole chimey, fluidy kind of, you know, easygoing composing to, you know, to the metal side. Anything in between, just with his stuff, proves that this instrument is so versatile. When you take it out of that and you put in something as you know, as boxed in as country, because country is, you know, it has its standards, you know, the twang and everything. And I mean, you have split coils.
Yeah.
If you want the coil sound, you have it.
You have
it. And it's like, oh man, I love the Strat, and it's never gonna do. The Majesty's never gonna do what the Strat does. Well, it can.
Yeah, it can.
It can.
It can.
If you.
I love the coil top, by the way.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite sounds.
Yeah, man. It's basically, it's just the only thing that stops you is your own imagination and whatever your you know, your gringolas, or what we call it in Spanish, you know, your
tunnel vision,
the tunnel vision that you have.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we can only speculate where this is going to go from. And like you said, we have to wait until technology catches up to see what happens next. Because even with the JP2C, and we've talked about this before, and like, is there going to be any alterations to this amplifier, or can we expect something else to happen to it? It's like, for now, I think that, and it's something that we talked to JP about and Jimmy T, and now we triple it with you, the tone mission, at least, you know, the big mission of arriving to you know, the where you want to port from. You guys have achieved that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I've brought that up before. I said, you have a signature guitar, signature pickups, signature amp, signature wah pedal, signature chorus pedal, signature pick. What else is there? You know, where do we go from here?
We clone JP hands. That's the next thing. Prosthetics to
we
play
can do
like
that.
John Petrucci.
Yeah, we can do that.
if you can clone his musical sensibilities, I would be into that.
Holy crap.
It's Jimmy T and I were goofing around with something yesterday, and he was showing me something in Pro Tools, and he threw up a drum beat. I happened to have a guitar, so I started playing this riff just off the cuff. He's like, yeah, record it. So he started recording it. Double it. I'm like, I don't remember what I just did. This is not my mindset. But it was, I'm sitting there listening back to it, and I'm going, this is just like a straight up 4/4, AC/DC, just to give you that kind of mindset, just straightforward. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been ruined by listening to Dream Theater every day. Like 4/4 doesn't make any sense to me anymore. It's like, if it's not in some oddball time signature, it doesn't make sense to me. And not that the oddball time signatures make sense to me either, but it's like, my musical sensibilities are very strayed from a straightforward 4/4 thing. So it was kind of funny to realize that.
I can imagine that your music, that your musical comfort zone right now, it's the uncomfort zone for many of us. I mean, it's like, to understand what goes through your mind every time you sit down with these guys, just watch them play or hear them play. Yeah. I can imagine then once you're immersed in that, because eventually you're gonna start thinking that way.
Oh yeah, I do. It's weird because I can't just sit down and play normal, I guess. Right? It's got to be in some sort of 6, 8, 12, 14, whatever, any of that stuff. It's funny, as a kid growing up, I played in school band and jazz bands, and I'm a bass player by nature, really. That's my real comfort zone. I could read music, I could read charts, I could do all that stuff. And then I kind of got out of it, and I haven't been able to get fully back into it again. But you're right, sitting here listening, especially when they're working on a record or something, and I'm sitting here in my office and I've got a little setup so I can hear what's going on. And I'll just hear them do something, and I'll just look over at the speakers and go, really? How did you come up with that? I don't even know. How do you count that? And there's times I've asked Mike, how are you counting that? And, he goes into how he does it. And then you ask Jordan, well, how are you counting it? And he's like, well, I'm counting it like this. And they're all counting it differently in a different feel, but it's all melding. It's something very incredible to watch those guys be creative, and to just a genesis of a song idea,
that's
when they're all
synergy, man. That's true synergy right there.
Because I will tell you, at some point during the process, I kind of tune out during the writing process. Yeah, because they're being creative, right? They're doing their thing.
Yeah.
And so some days you sit here and you go, man, it doesn't really sound like they're doing anything today. Like they're just, doesn't really seem like anything's happening. And then you listen to the playback at the end of the day and you're like, wait, where did that come from?
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's to watch a process like that. And not only with Dream Theater, but when LTE was here, any other project I've been involved in, it's to witness that that type of collaboration is amazing.
Yeah, man. I mean, I can imagine that Liquid Tension is like the expecting a like Halley's Comet to come by and watch the whole thing happen, and like a friggin', galactic event, and the whole thought process that goes behind it must have been something completely different to Dream Theater.
Yeah, you know what it was, what I found interesting about it, because they hadn't done a record in what'd you say, 20 years or something?
20 years, man.
So they all came into the studio, everybody got set up, we got everything mic'd up, we're ready to go. And they go in, and so the way the studio said, there's no windows. So, we have a video, we have a camera in the live room, we have a video monitor in the control room, right? But I think at that time with LTE, we didn't have it set up yet. Like I hadn't hooked it up or something. So all you could do is just listen on the speakers, right?
Wow.
And so those guys go in there and didn't really say anything to each other. They all just picked up their instruments and started playing. And Jimmy T and I sat in the control room, and they must have played for almost an hour, just nonstop. And we were like, are you hearing this? This is not one word spoken, just played. And it was a really interesting thing to be a fly on the wall for, because it's a different process than what Dream Theater is, or what John's solo stuff is, or, what any of it is. Each band or entity has its own process. Yeah. And but to just be part of that it's unbelievable.
Liquid Tension started out of just the necessity to do things in such a small window of time. Yeah. That they just kind of started improvising out of the need to use their time the best, right? I can imagine.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's the best way that they could come up with stuff, I guess. Mm-hmm. Just getting in there and doing it.
Yeah.
Because everything sounds so fresh, and you still have the LTE, glue in there, because you can hear it's Liquid Tension Experiment.
Yeah, that core principle of LTE and or with Dream Theater, that core principle of Dream Theater.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So yeah,
man,
it's cool, man. It's fun. It's fun. That's really the big payoff for me now is that type of stuff.
Maddie, you are super cool, man. You're super cool.
Yeah, we have a great time.
And you have been more than generous with your time with us. And we really appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for
you, Maddie.
all of this.
Well, you know what we need to do, because I don't think we really got like super nerdy enough with some of this.
What are we doing?
So, well, I think we could probably do another one of these, but we'll focus more on like the super nerdy gear stuff.
If you'd like to, I'm
actually, great for that.
I know that at camp it's going to be a grind, because you're always working. Mm-hmm. But if you want to show us something in particular, I am taking all my video equipment.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you'd like to show us something that you really want to talk about, because we do like to dive into things, but not get too nosy unless it comes out of you.
Sure.
And then if this comes out of you, bro, we appreciate it, because this is
man. I love it. To me, education is a big thing. And as a musician, being able to kind of, you don't have to do what I do, but you should have an understanding of all the stuff that you're using, how it all works together. So if something does go wrong, you can suss it out pretty quickly. So, I'm more than happy to get into all that really deep dive, techie stuff. So
fantastic.
Thank you, Maddie. Yeah, I just actually retubed my JP2C for the first time.
Super easy, right?
Yeah. I thought it was going to be a lot harder, because you Google stuff or you YouTube stuff, like how do I change the tubes to a Mesa Boogie, and you have this guy who takes his head apart, and you're like, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I'm not doing that. And all of a sudden you flip it backwards. You flip it upside down, mm-hmm. and it's a board. All you have to do is blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, oh crap! It took me about 15 minutes to do the whole thing. I was so scared. I'm like,
wow. Did you change all the preamp tubes too?
Yeah, I did everything.
Okay,
everything. All right. Did the
so
whole change.
You don't necessarily have to do that unless one of them's acting up and being noisy.
There was one
preamp tubes will last forever.
There was one that was kind of. It was, I know it's preamp tube because the other one, all the other ones were orange and bright and everything, and there was a lot of noise coming from the clean channel, and then
V1, yeah.
So I replaced all of them just because I hadn't replaced them ever.
Sure.
So I got a clean set of tubes. It's sounding amazing. Just a monster, man. It's just a monster.
Well, remind me at the camp. We'll talk about that stuff too.
Yes.
Because
Maddie, we're gonna do official sign off, and then we'll say goodbye to you.
Okay, cool.
So, guys, Mr. Maddie, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you so much.
Has been
Thanks for having me.
Another Chillsville pleasure and honor. Guys, get working on your instruments. Get on working on your equipment. It pays off, man. It pays off, and to tweak and tinker is a beautiful thing. So don't be afraid of changing your settings. And thank you so much, Maddie. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, and Chillsville is here for you, man. Anytime, we are here.
Awesome, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
And then I'll cut right there.
Okay.
Awesome, cool. Maddie.
Nice.
Man, this is so. All the other questions that I had in between, we just went into them naturally, which was
cool,
amazing. Yeah,
I hope I didn't go off on any weird.
No. That's the thing about these kind of talks. We kind of hope that you do, because that's where we get the really, really good stuff, because that's the stuff that makes you
right.
That's the stuff that makes your day, or in your work, well, redundance, your work. That's because people see kind of behind the scenes. They see the side of the scenes and they see the end product, but they don't see your struggles. They don't see, the problems that you might have had with something that was completely out of your hands, electrical problems, or there was a problem with the venue, or stuff that's completely out of your hands. Unless you tell us about this, we don't know. And it does, and when you tell us stuff like this, people can relate a lot more, because you go to your show and you're like, oh, this is going to be awesome, I'm gonna be a rock star, and all of a sudden something that's out of your control went awry, and your show went to crap. But and people don't expect that, and when they hear it from professionals like you guys, it's like, oh, it happens to them too. It's like, it's not in their control. It happens to everyone. You hope that because you do it so much, it happens less, and you can kind of foresee problems. But if you do one show a month or one show every 2 weeks or stuff like that, you got to prepare for stuff like this. So welcome back to Chillsville Presents. Chillsville Presents Part 2 with Maddie. How's it going, Maddie? How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Glad to be back.
It's good to see you again. This is a couple of months post our first time meeting and talking about a whole bunch of gear and a whole bunch of stuff, and a lot has happened. A lot
has happened.
Now, first of all, I want to say congratulations on this new DT album. It's incredible. We were all kind of expecting it to be something huge, because when you see the artists so excited to get something out, that everybody's like, and when it finally came out and everything just kind of blasted in front of our faces, man, it's just, we saw this morning that it's #1 in a whole bunch of countries. As expected, man. It's metal album, prog album, super galactic progressive time traveling album #1, all that stuff.
Huge blast.
Yeah. It's it's amazing to see the overwhelming positive response to this record. And anytime a band puts a record out, there's always that little bit of nervousness, like, are people gonna dig this? We dig it, but are the fans and the people buying records, are they gonna dig it? And they're really behind this one. So, and it's a great record.
We dig it, man. We dig it.
We dig it.
And you guys have an incredible, team of people working behind this record. I mean, you and Jimmy T being, the backbone of DT Central and turning the whole thing into a studio.
Yeah.
Man, this record, and we were talking to Michel about it, Michel Braganza, and he's like, man, this is. I don't want to like be blasphemous, but this sounds better than anything that Dream Theater's ever put out before. And we're like, dude, and they made this at DT Central at their homemade studio with big quotation marks, because it's not a home studio like my studio. It's a real studio, but they just came up with it during the pandemic. I mean, it's not like, oh, we're gonna build a studio someday. No, dude, they needed a studio and they did it.
Yeah, so it started the studio process before the pandemic, when we took over the space. And initially it was going to be just warehousing and storage and a place for the backline guys to work on gear and stuff like that. And when we got possession of the building, John came over one night and I was showing him around, and he looked at this one room and he goes, hey, do you think this room would be big enough for the band to rehearse in? And I said, yeah, it's a bit tight, but we could do it. We'd have to enclose it because it was partially open to another room and all that stuff. And he goes, do you think we can do that? And I said, yeah, sure. So I think the paint was still drying on the walls when we came in to do the band rehearsals for the Distance Over Time tour.
Wow.
So Jimmy T and I had been here just working nonstop, and contractors in and out. And it was, we got it done. And we set the band up in there, and, Mike Mangini had his gigantic drum kit in there, and it was tight, but we did it. And it was like, wow, we could actually do something here now. So then as the tour progressed, Jimmy T and I started talking more and more about, we should really make this a full-on studio. We could do a record here. And he had been doing some kind of test stuff with some of his buddies, like his band Time King. He would get the drummer in here and they would cut a drum track or something, and he's like, listen to this, listen to how it sounds. And so when the pandemic hit and everything shut down, I get a phone call from JP one day saying, I'm going to go into the studio starting Monday and start working on my solo record. Wow. And of course I'm and couldn't travel or any of that. So it was him and Jimmy T, and they came in here and they worked mainly in the control room, which we had set up initially. That was kind of Jimmy T's thing. He had given up his studio space where he was previously. So he was built a little production suite here. It just made sense. And so they worked mainly in the control room, and we didn't really have a lot of gear, but we had enough stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we need to cut drums for this record for Terminal Velocity. And of course, Mike Portnoy came in, and I came up here for a weekend and helped Jimmy T set up a drum kit. And we didn't have any of the rooms connected with cables. So we were running mic cables between the two rooms through the hallway, right? Because the control room's on one side of the building and the live room's on the other side of the building. So we're running mic cables back and forth. And I went home. They did the drum tracks. Everything came out great. Dave LaRue did his bass tracks at his studio at home. Okay. So that was and all of a sudden it's like, well, hey, we're going to do a liquid tension experiment record, and we should do it here. What do we need to do to get the studio ready for that? And so Jimmy T and I were like, well, okay, we need to buy some gear. We need to connect the rooms together. There's a lot of stuff. So we did a budget. We had all these spreadsheets and a shopping list with different vendors for equipment. And lo and behold, everything got approved, and next thing I know, I'm sitting here at the desk I'm sitting at now for about 30 days straight, building multi-pin cables to connect all the stuff in the control room. And, you know, we bought like 32 pair snake cable and, you know, had cut it up. And I was sitting here putting DB25 connectors on one end and XLRs on another end, and to hook up all the patch bays to the outboard gear. I had to build the patch panel for the live room to connect the snake to the control room. You know, we were running cables up above the rooms and the ceiling to connect everything together. And LTE came in, cut a record, and it's like, wow, this sounds amazing. Yeah. We're doing the Dream Theater record. And by that time it was, you know, everything was together. I mean, we were now in the portion of it where it was like, what can we do to fine tune it, you know? And so you know, when we set up for the Dream Theater record just over a year ago, it was, everything was here. You know, we had all the cabling, all the outboard gear, all of the microphones. You know, usually when we do a recording project, that's when we get in some new microphones to try out, and you know, so those play a big part in everything. But you know, then the decision had been made for Mike Mangini to use a smaller kit. Okay. But because of the pandemic, we had to have gobos up to separate the guys. Like some of the guys wanted to be separated, and you know, stuff like that. And they, you know, over time they all became comfortable with each other, and everybody was kind of in the bubble, so those started to go away. But, yeah, I mean, did you guys see the virtual album release party where they played the documentary?
Yes, I saw a little bit of it. I saw a little bit of it. Yeah.
So, you know, you see some of the footage of the guys in the studio working on the record. You kind of see, you know, over time how the record evolved.
I mean, it's there's a whole bunch of things similar to terminal velocity to distance over time. Excuse me. Yeah. In when writing comes, you know, to play, because you see, you know, the usual signatures of the guys, you know, that their chemistry and that their writing has a couple of signatures in places. Like they tend to go to certain chord progressions when they're doing like little bridge areas or connections and stuff. But, you know, the music is new, so you're always excited to hear what they did with it. But I mean, the first 4 tracks, to me, this is just my opinion, guys, just my opinion, everybody listening out there. The first 4 tracks were like a continuing of Distance Over Time, right? And then it kind of evolved into something else. And then you got the 8-string coming into play, and then you got the mega epic track, and you're like, what the hell happened here, man? You started in like, okay, we're riding in this train and we're going to the second part of the train, and all of a sudden we're in a jet and going into outer space, and what happened?
Yeah, you listening, the nice thing, well, not the neat thing for me when they're doing a record is to be able to sit here and you hear these songs at the conception stage and their infancy, and as they're working through the arrangements and coming up with parts and orchestrations and stuff like that. So it's, you know, by the time it gets to the final thing, you know, it's just to understand everything that they go through as a musician to get to the final chord of the song or the final note, whatever it is. And with the epic song, it was really a trip, because they were in there and they had this idea and they started working on it, and they were just banging away at it, working and working and working. And, oh yeah, well, okay, let's try this. And, you know, let's do this section and whatever it is. And then kind of at some point somebody goes, hey, how much music have we written already? You know, like how long is this song already? And it's like, oh yeah, you're at like 12 minutes. It's like, oh, I guess we're doing an Epic. It's just like, you know, how how much more time do we want to go? Well, who knows? Let's just see where it goes. So
I mean, it's nothing alien to them to write something for about 40 minutes. So
no, it's really like they kind of lost track of time when they started working on the song, because like I said, at some point somebody went, wait, how long is this already? And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. It didn't feel like that, right? As they were writing it and you would listen to it on playback, like it didn't feel like it was 10 or 12 minutes at that point. It was just like, wow, this is a journey that's just amazing. You want it to keep going.
I mean, I drive to my shows. My furthest show right now is about 7.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I listened to the whole album uninterrupted for the first time. And I listened to it 2 or 3 times. And it didn't feel long at all. It just goes. It just goes and goes and yeah.
I did that the other day too. I was at home and I was running some errands and I knew I had about an hour's drive. So I just put the record on start to finish. And when I got home, I emailed the band. I said, guys, I just listened to this top to bottom, uninterrupted. Wow. What a ride.
Yeah.
And like for me, my personal thing, and this is just me, this is how I do it. Yeah. When we get done at the studio, the album has rough mixes and we've lived, they've lived with the songs and I've heard them a bunch of times, and now it goes off to mix and master and all of the manufacturing process after that. So, I don't hear the record. And then, like when all the mixes are done, everything's signed off on, John will send it to the group. And I don't listen to it at that point. I just wait until release day. And I go down to a record store and I'll buy a copy of it, just like anybody else would. And I take it home and then I'll put it on and I'll listen to it like a fan.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That way you get
awesome.
The same experience we get. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I enjoy it that way because it's kind of hard to, you're so in it, like just listening to them working. I'll be sitting here in my office. I've got a set of speakers. I can hear what's going on. I can watch them on a TV monitor in the live room, and so I just hear all of these little snippets, and you hear something, and then maybe that little section gets changed and it becomes something else. You're like, oh yeah, I kind of like that section though. So at some point I sort of just distance myself from the music because I want to have that experience like when I first heard Images and Words, or something like that. It's like, I want that experience. And I do that with a lot of bands too. A lot of bands that I like, if I know that the record's coming out, I'll go to a record store, I'll go buy a copy and I'll listen to it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. Cause it's, being in this industry, you get a little, there's so much going on that you kind of, sometimes it's not as enjoyable to listen to stuff.
I can agree, man. I mean, I'm not in the recording studio all the time. I mean, I'm in my studio and this is where I do my live streams and stuff. It's not necessarily the same situation, but being a musician and playing shows all the time and being with the instrument all the time and singing all the time, it's like I heard Paul McCartney once said that he doesn't listen to music anymore because he's playing all the time and all that stuff. That's why Dream Theater is a thing for me that I set aside and I make it a thing because it's something that makes me a listener. It puts me in that place of being, not a critical musician, like, oh, I would have done that better, or what, it gives me the experience of everything. It's like, oh, this is awesome. I'm gonna sit down. It's like Christmas morning opening your first present. That's the feeling.
Yeah. And I still like that, some of the bands that I really love, I wish they were still around and putting records out so I could have that experience again with some of them. But, it's nice with Dream Theater because I've been a fan from the very beginning. I was introduced to them very early on, and I saw the Images and Words tour at a club in Orlando back in 93, something like that, 94, whatever.
Something.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. I'm like, wow, here's these guys that I've listened to. I mean, I don't know how many cassettes I wore out, in my car driving around as a teenager. And then now I'm seeing them, and wow, there's John Petrucci with the graphic guitar and the racks of stuff, and the John Mayung and Mike. It was just like, wow. And I was telling James Labrie about it one time. I said, I vividly remember. I can tell you exactly where I was standing in the venue. I can tell you exactly that I remember seeing you go upstairs to the balcony where the dressing rooms were and watching the band as they played Yitzy Jam.
Wow.
And just
Jam.
Yeah, and I remember that, and so yeah, it's cool.
Man,
it's cool. So
sorry, no,
that's
sorry.
Great...
Sorry, you said it's a jam, and I'm like, wow, they haven't played that in a long time.
Yeah.
Boom.
2015, I played it.
Wow.
No, wait, no, sorry.
No, before.
No. Before that. Sorry, we did. I was thinking of a festival tour that we did. I think we did it on a festival run. Sometime in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's definitely been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did. What did we do off of that record in 2015? Afterlife.
Afterlife.
We opened the show with. Yeah, the set list was like chronological, one song from every album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Afterlife has been on it's been like the go-to song from that record for a while. It's one of my favorites. My two favorite songs from that album are Afterlife and Only a Matter of Time.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the album, the entire album, but those two songs are my favorites.
Yeah. I think we did Yitzy Jam. Maybe we did it on the Dramatic tour at one point. I don't remember.
It's been a while.
I'd have to go back on the internet and look. I'm sure somebody will comment on this, and
Sorry, Maddie, I took you off the train of thought there.
Oh, that's okay. Another great record.
But yeah, man. I mean, this record has really exceeded expectations. I mean, I like to tell people, and this is why I write in every single forum that I go, and because I try not to, because you get all the guys that are like, well, I expected something to be like Train of Thought, or I expected this to be like. So you can't expect things like that from Dream Theater. You can't go in with expectations because these guys don't think like that. First of all, they evolve all the time. They step out of their comfort zone constantly, and they already did it. Why do you want them to do it again? It's all right to have like conceptual albums and stuff like that, and like revisit some things and kind of like like bring ideas together, like Metropolis Part 1 and the entirety of Scenes from a Memory. But that already happened too. Why would you want an Awake Part 2 or Metropolis 3? If Metropolis 3 would just come out of them, then fine, and they surprise you with it. But if you go in without expectations, because that's what you should do. Just clear the slate. And like, okay, let's see what Dream Theater comes up with this time. You'll be surprised every single time. Every single time.
Yeah, that's true. I think we said it the last time we talked. If you're not evolving as an artist, then why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Right.
Those are exactly your words. Those were exactly your words last time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's people in the Dream Theater fan base who are drawn to specific records and stylistically, the band would be very proggy in one record, and then they would be very metal in another record. And they're drawn to those particular stylistic choices of the band, and like you said, I mean, I thought it would be more like Train of Thought, or I thought it would be more like 6 Degrees or Octavarium or whatever it was. But the great thing about Dream Theater is they've never had to pigeonhole themselves.
No,
like they can do creatively whatever they want.
Yeah.
And you know, it's always going to be something interesting. And this record, I think, just really, I believe that this record is just a culmination of a lot of things over the last several years, how they approach doing a record, how they approach writing, how, you know, where we recorded the record, you know, Distance Over Time, we did it up at that yonder barn. And it was, the whole thing was like, it was a retreat. They were secluded away. There was no outside influence. You know, we're up in the woods, we're cooking out, or there's a bear knocking over the trash can one night outside the studio, you know. And just to have that experience, and the way they wrote, and then we tracked the record there, to then now come into their own house and go, wow, we can do this. We have zero constraints on anything. We don't have to watch a clock. We don't have to worry about how much we're paying for a studio. We know we don't need a big console and a big room to do this. And, you know, the proof is in the pudding. The record comes out and it sounds amazing.
Incredible.
You know? And the music is amazing too. The music's I really enjoy this record.
Man, go ahead, Ellis.
Thank you. Speaking of amazing, I was really amazed on how John's delivered to sound that A string so clear in the record, having that fat string. Can you talk about how the changes in the tweaking of the amp, of the equipment to achieve that?
Yeah, you know, it was really Jimmy T that kind of did all that. John had tracked the song, and so it's not really a secret, but when we record guitars, we always take a DI signal right off the guitar before it hits the amp, before it hits any effects. So that way, if we need to reamp something, or, you know, it's a lot easier to see transients if you're having to splice in, you know, an edit or something like that. You know, like in the old days, you would cut the 2-inch tape and cut out a section. You know, now it's with Pro Tools, but it just makes it easier to see the waveform. And so what happened was, if I have the timeline correct, John tracked the song with a prototype 8-string. So the one that he actually tracked the record with was a prototype. There was no finish on it. But the electronics and the hardware, everything was fine. So I think what happened was, kind of listened to the track, and it was just sort of like, it's there, but it's not there. And I remember Jimmy T calling me up, and we came into the studio, and he goes, I want to reamp this. I want to mess around with the amp tone a little bit, just to see if we can, you know, it's a different guitar. It's a different thing. So we pulled out a second head. We didn't want to disturb the one that he was tracking with. So we pulled out a second head, set it up, and just sat there and just played, you know, just reamped it and kind of tweaked on some stuff. Jimmy T tweaked, I don't remember exactly what he tweaked on it, but it was all very minimal movements, you know, and only just a couple of things. Like, it might have been the bass control on channel 2. It might have been one of the sliders on the graphic. And it just kind of, just by making those slight little changes, it brought the guitar into focus where it needed to be, just like, you know, like all the other guitar tracks. So I think he ran it off. He sent a clip to John. John went, yeah, that's cool, run it. So, you know, we already had the performance, so we just reamped it and tracked it with the changes. So yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, you
Nice.
know, and you know, a lot of times I would be sort of, I'm the guy that's against changing the amp setting, right? Like, if it's dialed in, just don't change it. But you also have to realize that it's an 8-string guitar, so it's different. It's gonna, you know, the multi-scale thing, the extra string, the lower notes, even though the pickups are the same, the pickups sound exactly the same as a 6-string Majesty, right? They wound the pickups to sound exactly the same. They're different pickups, you know? So there's all of these little things that could affect it. And sometimes you do have to make those changes just to make it be the best it can be. So yeah, it's not that that anything was, there was nothing bad or anything. It's just like, it's a, you know, it's like putting a different microphone on a cabinet. You know, you might have to EQ it a little differently to achieve what you want. So
what do you think? What do you think working with the 8-string? What have you had to change, Maddie? What?
Nothing.
Look at that. Oh, qué linda, mano. Look at that.
Yeah. Oh, got a little tuner on there.
Beautiful. Yeah, man. I use the same one.
You know, the only thing that I have to change is when I'm tuning it, I have to remember that there's 3 strings here. So,
you kind of turn it like, oh,
so conditioned with the other guitars, it's like you kind of do a muscle memory. You just do it without thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this morning. I'm like, why is the G string not doing anything? Why is the G string not? Oh, yes.
Yeah, man. It's a little, you know, it's eye popping when you see it, and everything from the headstock having 3 tuning pegs on one side and just 5 on the
beautiful.
other. Look at that. That's gorgeous, man.
Yeah. That white neck looks so beautiful.
Yeah, it's actually, it feels really good. And for me, I'm not a great guitar player by any stretch of the imagination, but the 8-string is a bit more intuitive to play for me than a 7-string.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. I don't know why.
It does. It
does.
When you pick it up, it does things to you when you pick up an extended range guitar.
Yeah.
You either click with it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's cool. I love it. I'm looking forward to using it out on the road, you know?
Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting what, you know, see what things you guys come up with that guitar. Cause we only have one song now, but I know that a whole bunch of stuff is about to, you know,
it'll come
happen up in his head. And it's like, Maddie, why don't we try different tuning on that 8-string? And I'm like,
well, that, you know, him and I talked about that when we got the first prototype, because I had talked to, just in kind of the research for the project, I talked to like Tosin and Matthias Eklund I had spoken to, and a couple other guys. And I said, you know, how do you tune your 8-string? And it was interesting that most of those guys will take the low F sharp and tune it down to E.
Yeah.
So you've got E, B, A, D, or E,
B, E?
and then E, A, right? So they're getting kind of that extended like drone note on the E for a low note. And I thought about it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You know, it's like just doing like a drop D on a 6-string guitar type of thing. But when I was talking to John about it, he's like, no, I want to tune it how it would normally be tuned. That's how I want you to hand it to me. And that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay, cool.
All right, cool. So that's what we did.
Yeah.
So,
and the track came out amazing. I mean, now that we've been through camp 2021, I can say that we heard it for the first time back at camp, and John like swore us to secrecy. It's like, okay.
And I got to tell you, and I looked hard at the camp after he played that song to see if anybody had posted it on the internet. Nothing.
No, man.
That was truly amazing right there.
It was truly a kept secret, which in the digital age of social media is almost impossible. You will always have a traitor, and everybody kept the secret and kept the trust. That was awesome.
That was great. That was really amazing because we were all looking at each other like, did you do the right thing there? That was okay. But yeah, I mean, it worked out. Yeah, you guys heard the 8-string track well before the record came out.
Yeah, it was early August, man. It was awesome. It was amazing. Well, last week of July, actually.
Last week of July. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were all looking at each other like, holy crap. Holy crap, he's really gonna do it. And then that it was an incredible situation to be in, a unique situation to be in.
Yeah. We had talked about possibly showing the 8-string at the camp, and the guy Sterling and the guys at Music Man were like, well, we're not ready to put it out there yet, so let's not do that.
Yeah, then pictures want to come out, and that would have been that. I think the song was enough.
Themselves on the advertising, so
I think the song was enough to pique the interest of at least 200 people and keep everybody on edge.
Yeah,
I mean, we appreciated it so much because it's Dream Theater stuff that we've never heard before.
Yeah,
and but the whole excitement about the new guitar and everything, it was awesome. It was amazing.
Cool. I'm glad you guys liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So let me look at my notes because I know I wrote something about one more thing before we go into something else. Man, Mike Mangini. I mean, I've always been amazed by this man. Ever since the first time I saw him come into audition, I have been mind blown by this man, and he's an incredible human being. I got to hang out with him even more over tequila and a little bit of well tequila for him, whiskey for me.
Yeah.
And man, this record just like it's like letting him loose to his wildest dreams. I don't know what his wildest dreams are, but if my wildest dreams were drums, it would be this record.
He Mike is incredible, and the way he thinks about rhythmic compositions, and like his brain process is it's almost computer like, right? Like the way he interprets rhythms and stuff like that. I mean, he just watching him play. I asked him one day on tour, I said, Mike, I can't get coordination enough to just do like a 4/4 beat. And he goes, oh, well, here, try this. And he showed me like a technique that he uses when he teaches students. And I'm like, oh, it makes total sense. He goes, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, go hand, foot, hand, and look at where it needs to go. So you have to like look a beat ahead, and he goes, that will start to get your coordination going. And I was like, that's so simple. Why didn't I ever think of that before? But then to watch him do all of the polyrhythms and stuff that he does, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. When he used a smaller kit on this recording, but I don't think it was really like he didn't play any differently than he would have.
No, and it wasn't any less either.
Any less.
It wasn't. And he would just get in there, man, and he'd latch onto something, or come up with a rhythm or a beat or something to go with the song, and he would just have a ball with it, And the cool thing is like when we were tracking the record, when they were writing the record, they would write a song, and then once the song was written, Mike would come in the next day and track the final drum part.
Wow.
Sometimes we would keep like something that was in the I don't want to call it a demo version, because it's not a demo in the traditional sense of it's just a sketch. It was like a full song. So sometimes like he would do something in the demo version, And it was like, well, you can't replicate that, like the feel, whatever. So we would keep that, but he would come in and track the song. And then the following day he would come in, we would review it. He would make any corrections that needed to be made after he had sat with it for a day. And then we would move on to the next song. So it was, he had a really good, what am I looking for? Like rhythm down.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun. For doing drum parts, like for tracking and stuff. So it was a really good way to do it. Yeah, I mean, he came in and just had a ball with it, man. It was fun. He was really having a good time on this record.
So. Man, and you can tell, like right towards the end of the record, at the view of from the top of the world.
Yeah.
One of my best friends, Eduardo, like he's like my brother. He called me on the phone. And he's like, "Okay, I'm listening to this song for like the 4th time, and there is no way this man is doing this. No. Whoa!" It's like that first time you listen to something, you can't believe it's happening.
Yeah.
It's that kind of feeling.
And again, like I said it earlier, I'll be sitting here in my office and I've got the speakers on, mainly just so I can hear the talkback mics and I can watch them on the TV screen. But then you like go at the end of the day, you go in the control room and you listen to the playback and you just like, you hear these drum fills and it's like, what was that? And they're all just giggling like school kids, listening to it. Oh my God, listen to that. So yeah. And I think a lot of it too is, just the environment here at the studio is, you can see the dartboard behind me. So that was a big thing where, like Mike would take a break and he'd come in here and him and I would throw darts for 20 minutes, half an hour. And, it was a good way to just kind of unwind and have fun. So.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine the kind of pressure that puts on a person. I mean, making this kind of music, not only playing it, but coming up with this kind of stuff. It's got to be like comparing it to something like my wife does in her laboratory. Like she sits there and she has to come up with new knowledge. And experiment with cells and pathogens and all kinds of stuff. That's that level. They create knowledge and they create new things to show the world. It's like, check out this new thing that's never been done before.
It's these guys have a chemistry that when they get in the same room together and they just we're gonna write a song. It's no holds barred, man. It's just they all play off of each other and they all have ideas and it just melds together into what you hear on the record.
Man, and they all kind of push each other to be greater than they are. I mean, and that's a really tall order coming from these guys. These guys are like, sorry for my biased opinion, but they're the best at what they do.
Yeah, I think so
too.
They've gone through a lot of phases in their career as a band, musically and personnel, stuff like that. And I think they're to be at this point in their career and still being able to create music that they love and enjoy it, and then to put out an album like this is truly amazing. I mean, you don't see that a lot.
It makes better musicians.
Yeah,
it makes better musicians. It pushes us to be better at handling our equipment, our instruments. I mean, Maddie, this is very important, and this is how we're gonna connect these things here right now. As many of you guys have seen, back in the camp, I got to play for John, be his backing track for an afternoon. And 2 things. I played John's Majesty and the JP2C that he used to track terminal velocity And I was that, and he told me when I was done. So that didn't shock me in the moment, and then kept me in like a shock for like 25 minutes. He told me after, and I was like, oh, thank you. And guys, I have to tell you something. Everything that Maddie says about setting up guitars, and that John plays the same guitars that we do and all that stuff, and I have never doubted it, but I can reconfirm 100 million times that it's true. When I pick up this guitar that I have right here, this is the new 20th anniversary Majesty, by the way. It's a beauty. It's amazing. It's a little bit heavier than the normal Majesty, but that just makes it a lot better. I don't know. It feels like chunkier. Back then, my favorite guitar was my, there we go. Yeah, yep. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. This is the only card we need in the studio.
Maddie,
This is the
show
only
me that.
card we need. Yeah. Now, when I played JP's Smoked Pearl Majesty, I had never played a Smoked Pearl before. I had never played any of JP's guitars before. I had one in my hand before, but I've never actually sat down and played with one. It felt exactly like my guitar because I did exactly what Maddie said to do. I set it up, the action, the way it's supposed to be set. I use the strings that they use, regular Slinkies, point tens on my guitar. Man, he's giving you all the answers. The man is right here, and he's giving you, well, right here. There we go. There we go. I'm kind of swerving. Because I see you on the left, but I got to point to the right. And take it from me, who have had one of John Petrucci's guitars in my hands and played with him for a whole hour. It was like playing my guitar, and it felt right the second I put it on and I played the first chord. It felt perfect.
Cool. Well, that's what we're aiming for.
And that's just, without talking about the experience of, just having John Petrucci playing guitar with him in that moment. That was just, first of all, life-changing, and a whole bunch of things happened in my head. Because I've known John since like 2015. I've known you since 2015. I actually met you before I met John. And we've always shared like common things, beards, bourbon and scotch and stuff like that. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff, but we never actually played a chord together.
Right.
That brought me back to 14-year-old me.
Nice.
And really, really gave me a different perspective. But everything else, the guitar, the sound, everything, it was like being at home. Having my Majesty on me and my amp on. Exactly the same.
It's really important to John that anything that he uses is, anybody can get. He, way back in the day, there was custom stuff in his rigs and stuff like that. But he's like, if I'm playing it, if I'm putting my stamp of approval on it, it needs to be exactly what you can go to your local music store or wherever you get your stuff and get it. So, and that comes down to the guitars, the amps, the everything, pedals. So.
Yeah, guys, if you have a Majesty and you don't practice, you're still gonna sound like you don't practice. But if the instrument helps, because it's an incredible instrument, and it's a tool, it's a professional tool. Mm-hmm. But it's the same guitar that John uses, and I can confirm that 1,000 times. Yeah, Maddie, that was incredible. And also thank you so much for, the late nights and always giving us, that extra knowledge and that extra stuff. I know that I'm less techie than Ellis. Ellis is a little bit more of a tweaker in the tech side. Mm-hmm. But every time we meet, I learn something new that I can put, into good practice right here at home.
Well, it's, to me, my attitude on that is it's important. It doesn't matter what kind of musician you are, what you're into. If you're a guitar player, you should know how to change strings. You should know how to do basic stuff so your instrument can stay in playing condition so you can play, so you don't have to worry about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just really, it's simple stuff. You don't have to know how to level frets and cut nut slots and do finish repairs and route out a tremolo bridge cavity or something. But you should know how to change your strings. You should know how to set intonation. You should know how to adjust a truss rod. You should know how to adjust the string height on the saddles. And this is for, it doesn't, not just for a JP guitar, but for any guitar.
Yeah.
It's all, and you can do all of that stuff with a few simple little tools that you can carry in your gig bag with you. And it will, once you know how to do that stuff and you're comfortable doing it, it becomes second nature, which then allows you to forget about it and just play. And you're always going to have an instrument that plays the way you want it to play.
Man, and you'd be surprised. I know that you go into forums and then you go on the pages on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, but you'd be surprised of the amount of guitar players who don't know how to do this stuff. And not only do they not know how to do this stuff, they're afraid to do this stuff.
They're afraid.
Because they're like, oh, a Majesty should be perfect right out of the case, and I should be able to play it forever, and it'll always be in tune. And I'm like, you're kind of responsible for that.
You're kind of responsible for that.
Yeah. I actually had a little, I was thinking about you this morning. I took the 8-string out of the case this morning, right? And I picked it up and I played a chord. I'm like, what? I pulled it out of the case and it's not even in tune. What the hell is wrong with this thing? I thought it was kind of funny, because I knew we would be talking about this stuff today. But there's, and I've said this at the camp in my classes that I do, the internet is a very powerful place, and there's a lot of information. I'm not going to say whether it's good information or bad information. That's not for me to decide. But there's a lot of information out there about how to set up your guitar, how to do a truss rod adjustment. You're going to find a ton of people who say, don't ever touch the truss rod. You should never touch the truss rod. You're going to see guys that are like, yeah, it's so easy, do this and whatever. It's in the guitar for a reason, and it's adjustable for a reason. So it's not, don't ever think that you can't make that adjustment.
Doesn't come with a warning sign, right? That says luthier only.
Right. I'm sure there's a lot of places that would, love to have that kind of warning on an instrument, because you can only bring it back to that, whatever. But, don't be afraid to make these adjustments. And if you don't know how to do it, you can look on the internet and find some information, but try and find what I would say is like a reputable source. And I'll give them a plug just because I like the company and I buy a lot of tools from them. StuMac.
Yeah.
StuMac has a huge video collection on their website of tips and tricks for maintaining your instrument, right? There is a whole video that Dan Earlywine did on the truss rod and how to adjust it. And I wish everybody on the planet would watch that video 5 times in a row, do the adjustment, and then go back and watch it 5 more times, because it answers every single question.
Ellis, this is your territory, bro.
Those guys are the knowledge.
Yeah.
Those guys are the knowledge. They invented tools that facilitate everything nowadays.
Oh yeah. And I love the fact that they do all of those type of tech videos and how to do things, and then like Thomann Music over in Germany, they've been doing a whole tech series on how to work on your instrument and stuff like that. So there's a lot of and I don't take this the wrong way, but there's a lot of reputable knowledge out there that you can find easily and trust that the information you're being given is correct. But you know, I mean, it's really this simple, like especially on these guitars, you know, you can, like Music Man has this little truss rod tool. It's basically just a screwdriver with the end cut off.
This, yeah.
Right. And you just stick it in there, just turn it. It's okay. You're not hurting the guitar. If you're turning it this much, you're not hurting the guitar. If you start going in a full circle, you're going to break something.
Yeah.
That's bad. So, you know, and I think did I say this in my class, Fernando? I don't remember. Like, you know, small adjustments is all it takes.
You told us an eighth of a turn at a time.
Yeah.
And measure. Always measure. Check your tuning.
Yeah. And at some point, you know, after you measure enough and you get an idea of what it feels like, go by feel.
Yeah.
That's what I do most of the time now.
I got an acoustic guitar that a company sent to me to demo on my channel.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I did was go for the truss rod. And I'm like, you know what? This is not a classical guitar. You know, most classical guitar do not have truss rods. Mine do. I'm lucky that they do. But that's the first thing I did, and I set it up to Majesty specs. So my acoustic Majesty specs now, and it feels amazing, and I can play anything, man. And cool. it's a really a guitar that people will look at it and it's like, oh, it's not my thing. I'm just gonna look at it and no, pick it up and mess with it. You know, set it up to your liking. That's why it's there.
Yeah, and every guitar player has a different preference. You know, you can take all the measurements I give you for John's setups. Yeah, it's gonna put you right where he likes his guitars.
Yeah,
may not be what you like. You know, I guarantee you, if you set it up like John's guitar, you're gonna go, man, the strings are buzzing on the frets and it's really annoying. Yeah, but that's all part of the way he wants the guitar and the way he plays and his touch. It's all the guitar setup is based around that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, I just want the strings super low and I don't care if they buzz. It's because the way he plays and the way he picks, and you know, that's what dictates the guitar setup. So if you're a guitar player that plays really, really heavy, like I guess a good example would be like the first guy that comes to mind is Billy Joe from Green Day.
Yeah.
Watch him play on that Strat, man, and he's just beating the crap out of it.
Yep.
You're not going to set the guitar up like John Petrucci's guitar.
No, definitely.
It's not going to work.
Definitely
not. Right. So yeah, you have to find as a player, you have to find what works for you. And knowing how to make those adjustments to achieve that is a good skill to have. So, yeah. And you know, sometimes though, sometimes guitar players they don't really want to be bothered with doing that stuff. They would rather take it to somebody, take it to a luthier, take it to a tech, and get the guitars set up that way. And you know, they're totally fine with that, and that's great too.
Yeah.
You know, find what works for you.
Yeah.
Is ultimately what it is.
Guys, these are all tools and knowledge straight from, you know, a guy who does this every day. You know, part one has everything that you need to know about that kind of stuff. We talked with Maddie about his beginnings and everything, but we always talk about guitar setups and stuff. And he has so many videos out there on YouTube and Facebook everywhere that he shows exactly what he does. You can use those principles for anything. I mean, I use your specs for setting up guitars, and I use JP specs for the JP2C, except my clean tone.
Right.
Because my clean tone, even though I do like the chimey, pristine clean, sometimes I want to play ska. and I
Mhm.
want to play some more Latin American kind of feel stuff because I'm Puerto Rican, man. It's embedded in my blood, and I need it to be a little bit not to break up, but I need it to spank a little more,
Yeah.
and that's the difference. That there's slight differences. We start with the proven method, and then you derive to where you prefer.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's when you're setting up an amp or something like that, you got to find what works for you. My personal preference for an amp tone is a little bit different from John's. I love John's tone, and I help him achieve it with the gear and everything. But if it were me setting up an amp for myself at home, I'm going to set it a little differently because I play differently. I want a different sound. So it's all personal preference. But yeah, like his settings are for a JP2C amp. That's an amazing place to start because that you're going to get exactly what that amp does.
Yeah.
You're going to get that sound.
Yeah.
And then, like for me, I actually, I prefer just slightly less gain.
Okay.
Well, I want it to be a little like, I like one of my favorite guitar tones, is, Eddie Van Halen from the 1984 record.
Yeah.
They go into that like extended solo at the end of Drop Dead Legs. And you hear the guitar doing the da 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 da, and it's like it's broken up and distorted, but it's still kind of clean.
Yeah.
Like that, I love that tone.
Okay.
So, yeah,
that's your chocolate zone right there.
That's my chocolate zone. Yeah,
chocolate zone.
Yeah.
So, and you can dial in a JP2C to do that. So,
yeah, you could pretty much dial it to do anything, man. This
amp
is
it's
perfect.
That's the great thing about that amp too, is it's incredibly versatile. It does the C plus, it is a C plus, and it does that. But like you said, you can set the clean channel to be a little different. You turn up the gain above noon on the clean channel, and it starts to break up, kind of like a tweed amp, right? Which is a great, amazing tone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people. A lot of people don't have the right idea about a high gain amp just because of that. Just because they don't see enough people playing it at a low gain setting or a different setting. They say, "Oh, this is just to play metal." There are 3 very versatile channels on this amp.
Yeah,
that you could use for incredibly different things.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't play metal, if you play blues, I mean, look at Terminal Velocity. There's blues playing on that album.
Yep.
There's plenty of blues playing on that album. And you can't tell me that if you've heard it for the first time, you're like, oh, that can't be a high gain Mesa Boogie. You would think it would be like an overdriven kind of achieved sound. Like, oh, this is just an overdrive pedal over a Fender Basement or something like that. And you're like, dude, no.
Yeah.
It's a tweaked Mesa Boogie. You just haven't thought of that possibility in your life.
Well, like we were saying before we started the interview, is Steve Lukather used C pluses with Toto. You listen to that stuff, that's not a high gain sound.
No,
but it's a great sound.
Yeah,
so
they're all beautiful possibilities in there.
Yeah.
Now, Maddie, I want to talk about one more thing because I know we got to let you go in a little bit.
Sure.
Do the trifecta, the
Okay.
JP trifecta.
Oh boy.
Which is JP, Maddie, and Jimmy T.
That's right.
The perfect team come together over a whole bunch of years of experience out on the road, experience in the studio.
Yep.
Jimmy T, we celebrated his 30th birthday back at camp, man.
Yeah.
I can't believe Jimmy T is 30 years old.
Neither can I.
Dude, first of all, dude, I did an interview with Jimmy T and it just blew my mind because I'm like, he's using, Pro Tools when he was a teen and learning how to do different things and with recording. I didn't even do recording until a couple of years back. I just kind of played a classical guitar endlessly, and I'm like, okay, no, and Jimmy T plays guitar, he plays bass, he records, he does all kinds of things, comes into your duo kind of style, because you're like Batman and Robin with JP at this point. Because it's JP and Maddie, and they're doing the guitar thing, and it's a perfect combination, peanut butter and chocolate. All of a sudden, boom, comes Jimmy T and makes it into a trifle, man, a trifecta. Everything from the new album to the LTE 3 to, I mean, beginning with back in the day when he started working with the band, everything kind of clicked, and we've seen it evolve, and we've seen it click more. And the fact that you guys put all this stuff together, and you have the DT studio now and everything, is just proof that you guys are a really effective team.
Yeah, I think it really, it's three people who have a very similar outlook and mindset on music and technology and stuff like that, and we all complement each other to make the chocolate cake, if you will. So yeah, it's JP. Of course, it all starts with JP. None of this is possible without him. And then Jimmy T, when we first started working with him, he was the house engineer at Cove City Studios, and we were doing the self-titled record, and it was the first time we'd met him. Rich Chicky was engineering for us, and I just remember we put him through his paces, and just he never faltered. No matter what we asked of him, he never wavered at all. Man. And then when we came back to do the Astonishing, we asked for him to come be the assistant again, and that's when I really got to know him a lot better, because there was a lot of time during that record where the whole band wasn't in the studio, so it was kind of a little more of a laid back vibe at the time. And he's just worked his way into being an integral part of the camp. We brought him on board for the Astonishing tour to run playback, because of all the orchestration stuff. David Campbell did all the orchestration and everything. So there were all of those parts and the video sync, and it was a big undertaking. And one thing that I had known at the beginning of that was, we need somebody who can just come in here, and as the band is playing the song and making changes in real time about the arrangement, somebody needs to be able to adjust all of the playback stuff to accommodate that. And so we brought him out to be the playback guy for that, and that's all he did all day, was sit behind a computer and I need the video's out of sync with this part, and we got to sync it up again. So he would work with the video team to do all the time code stuff, and so that's kind of really how he worked his way deeper into the camp. And like I said, I mean, the three of us make a great team, and DTHQ wouldn't exist without him. He's kind of the brains behind the recording studio side of it. Picking out the equipment, the microphone selection, the speaker monitors that we have, plugins that get used, he's got a vision and a creative streak that really drives what he does, and like I say, it's not possible without him either. So
he's made me rethink a lot of stuff here in my home studio too. I mean, everything from microphones to the plugins that I use. I mean, I'm using digital Neve channels on my Apollo, and of course I'm using the Mojaves. I'm using the Royer mics and the Shure mics. I haven't tried the SE mics, but I really want to try them.
Yeah, they're nice.
They sound amazing. They sound amazing.
Yeah. And all of that stuff, you know, because he's so deep into the recording side of things, you know, I'm not as deep into the recording side of things anymore, other than, you know, he'll send me something like, hey, this new mic just came out, you know, I want to check it out, or I was thinking about we should check this preamp out, or, you know, do you think we could build one of these, whatever it is. And, you know, that's kind of where I'll start to get involved in the recording side of things, you know, other than building cables here all day long. That's,
Man.
you know, and maintaining the place. But yeah, and he's got a rapport with the band that is just, I've never seen another engineer work with them like that. You know, he can anticipate what they need before they need it. He can, in real time, you know, just imagine all of them at the same time asking for something different, and he's like piloting the ship, you know, just like, okay, you know, a few keyboard clicks away, and all of a sudden, yeah, cool, good, let's go.
That JP was talking about that. He was like, okay, so we were doing something at LTE3, and me and Jordan would have something different, and he hears his stuff, not the mix, but like I think the click was different for him that it was for somebody else, and he already had it done. And he's like, no, it's already done, and it's already split into.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's he's really, he's got that creative mind, you know. He's a musician, a great musician, you
yeah.
know, if you've heard his band.
I've heard Time King, man. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And then and he's also a very brilliant technical guy on the engineering side. So he bridges that gap between the creative and the technical very well. So
Yeah,
whereas I'd be sitting here going, right, how do, got to cut the tape, and you got to mark it with the grease pen.
Maddie,
That's
don't,
the recording I came from.
dude, don't downplay yourself, because you do so much important work, man.
I was going to say that.
Yeah,
man.
you know, my role in the trifecta is, you know, I'm the guy responsible for making the train run on the tracks. You
You wear
know,
a lot
I
of
got
hats, man. You wear a lot of hats right now in Dream Theater.
Yeah, but it's fun. I enjoy it. You know, it's for me, it's that's my creative outlet, I guess. You know, when I can sit here and have 20 different things stacked up on my desk that have nothing to do with music, but have to do everything with the band and the train running on the tracks.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where I like to reside, I guess.
Maddie, and it's like, okay, a lot of people do leadership training
Mhm.
and study these individuals who are successful, and this is exactly the same. I have studied what you do the same that I've studied what JP does, and starting to get into the Jimmy T without getting too involved, because there's a lot of things that I would need, basics that I would need to just understand the tech side of it. So bit by bit on there, but from JP, I've learned. Let's put the music aside, because I first of all, I don't do what John Petrucci does, and right now at this point in my life, I don't think I could do what John Petrucci does. I think that's why I admire him so much. I do something completely different.
Right.
But every single principle that he puts out there, like with the people that he associates with, the companies that he associates himself with, everything like that, I have put into play in my own career.
Cool.
And just associating yourself with people who will, you can offer value with your work, and can offer value to your work, and have an incredible relationship come out of that. That's a very beautiful thing. And if everybody did this, I don't think anybody would be unsuccessful. I mean, it's just a very basic principle to, spread kindness and be genuine,
Yeah.
and offer value to people and genuine interest in what they do.
Sure. Yeah.
And what you do is bring out the best in people, Maddie. You bring out the best in JP, you bring out the best in all of us and in what you teach us. And man, you are too kind and too proper the entire time. I'm gonna tell you this here because it's what we all think. It's not just me.
Thank
Ellis,
you.
we've talked about this before, and just
100%.
sharing this with us talks volumes of your character. And what you do is probably, I mean, your job demands so much, and you're just willing to put this knowledge out for everybody to make people's lives easier with all this. And basically, like, okay, guys, this is how you do it. Do this, and you get this result. If it's not the result you want, you could tweak it to your favor.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we wanted to highlight with bringing you on board here. And then thank you so much for just, sharing all this stuff with us and being so cool and showing us all this gear. I do have pictures that I took during the camp to
Okay.
put all over this stuff, so you guys will see some visuals around.
Nice.
I'm still thinking about doing this like a whole big feature thing or splitting it up into 2 parts, but we'll see what I come up in the next week.
All right.
And
I will leave it to you.
up out there in YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and social media world, this is not the only time you can watch this, and this is not the only video where Maddie has said most of this stuff. Look him up on social media. He is everywhere with all these Music Man videos, Mesa Boogie videos, everywhere. He's spreading the knowledge, bringing it to your phone or to your computer, and put it into practice, because you will get the results you want. 100 million times confirmed by these 2 guys here, by Ellis and me, that we do this every day. We can confirm that this is 100% genuine and accurate. So put it into practice, guys. Put it into practice, and be merry. Listen to some Dream Theater. Listen to some Liquid Tension Experiment, Mr. John Petrucci, and enjoy the ride, because there's much more than just musician thought going on here. There's a lot of emotional experiences, and that's what I got from this record, man. That's
Cool.
what I got from this record, and thank you to all the Dream Theater crew and to all of you guys for all this wonderful stuff. And out there in Chillsville land, we will see you soon.
Thank you, Mary.
And
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It's been fun.
thank you.
Awesome.